What's up, guys? Welcome to a very unique situation here. I'm calling this JK overtime.
I guess I'm calling it JK overtime as well.
Which is ironic because we're not being paid overtime to be here, but we are going over the usual amount of time that these episodes go, which is what a lot of people have been asking for a very long time. They've been like, yo,
Overtime
these episodes
even.
are too short. So then we're like, why don't we get together on an off day and just go limitless and just talk about whatever you feel like.
Especially because we're still in California compared to some people who left this business and abandoned it a while ago.
Yeah, and moved on to a better place. Sounds like they died.
Dude, this is it. We were just talking about this off camera. We were talking about the idea that we can only sometimes go into a topic or go so deep based off of two things. One is time. Our longest episodes are like roughly like 20 minutes, our OTRs, right? Off the records for all the fans out there. But, 20 minutes only goes so deep. But then the second thing is that this whole place is Just Kidding News. So the second you even get remotely deep into something, you're going to get dunked on.
Right, yeah. You kind of have to in a way, which is funny because I remember that brings up this really odd thing. But a long time ago, we had done this episode that was about why can't Asian guys date white women or something. And the first time we did it, we were joking. And all the comments were like, why are you guys joking about that? And people were like, I really wanted to know. Like, I wanted help with this problem, but you guys just fucked around. And then we recently redid it. And then we were like, okay, let's do it again, like months later, but let's not joke and let's actually address the issue. And then people were like, oh, damn, like this is what I wanted. Thank you so much. But then people who are really close to us were like, yo, that was the most boring episode. So it's like, you can never really win. But, also, like you said, we don't really get too far past the Earth's crust. You know what I mean? In that amount of time.
I mean, it's called Just Kidding News. Anytime anybody, I think, says, why are you joking about that? I think you have to like really think about the brand and the title. And just ask yourself why I stopped by Just Kidding News. But to even just expand the ecosystem and just like where we're all at, and also we're all expansive people. Everybody has a depth to them outside of like the jokes and stuff. Maybe adding this little segment of longer conversation of our overtime will be able to satisfy some of those people that are looking for a little bit more.
Hell yeah. Also, I think it's cool that we're always focusing on guests. Or when we're all together, we're focusing on the collective dynamic, but we never really get to talk like one-to-one and kind of just go deeper. Like a lot of people don't realize how well we know each other, and how long we've known each other.
Let's put a year to it. I'm going to have to jog my own memory. I'm not even telling a story. I'm like discovering myself. Let's put a year to it.
The
2000.
year, yeah. I'm thinking like 06, dude. 2006.
Yeah, it might be 06.
Yeah.
I definitely.
'Cause you were a sophomore in college, I think.
Yeah, I was sophomore in college for 05, 06. I definitely heard about you like 05, 06 for sure because
wow.
I was.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? No, I was definitely Victor Kim.
Yeah.
Obviously, was the guy who's showing me some of your clips. And we were watching this cat out of this cat named Ryanimay. He's from the OC. You know what I mean? So when you're talking about like a lot of other b-boys and stuff like that in the scene at that time,
They said I was from the OC.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, or from Southern California,
Oh, cool.
and we're in the area because we were watching people from like Korea.
Yeah.
We were watching people from France. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anytime like this is before YouTube, so when we're going on like OneCipher.com or bboyworld.com or whatever forums had like b-boy clips, and Victor would be just showing me everything. Same with Mike. You know what I mean? We would just be fucking ingesting as much content as possible. I do specifically, you were stand out because I was like, one, there's a guy who has this hair that I don't know how he has cloud stripe hair, but he has it. His name's
Yu-Gi-Oh
Ryanimay.
guy, yeah.
And then he's capable of doing like really flexible stuff with his leg, where he does this thing where he puts his fucking foot on his shoulder and like magically brings his fucking foot over here, or like does this thing where he like spins on his like elbow and stuff. This is before I saw like the head flip.
Oh, wow,
and I was just like seeing these moves. And I think maybe at the time I was maybe equating it to like Circus Runaways, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
that's
like,
the era.
Yeah, flexible, kind of sacrificial.
Counterculture breaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were in like punk rocker type, like either like tight jeans, ripped up
Dude, I
stuff.
had so much holes on all my clothes.
There was such an edginess. You had like arm socks that are like
wow, you remember
on your
that
wrist
shit?
with like bracelets everywhere.
Damn.
You just had to look.
Bro, I got called gay all the time. every day of my life. As I would leave the house, my dad.
But yeah, so like 05, 06, I was hearing
Yeah.
about you, but yeah, I don't think I met you. Did I meet you before Hawk?
I don't know. I don't know who came first because Hawk met Mike, I think, very early on.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing is you, Victor Kim, Mike Song, were like the three freaking amigos, man. And that was like the triplet. And when I met Victor, that's pretty much when I kind of met you and Mike.
Yeah.
And you guys were like inseparable back then. And Victor's a guy that was from my crew, Quest Crew, but he ended up disappearing. We'll get into that later. But but Victor, Anthony,
You just said
Mike,
disappearing?
yeah, he just disappeared. Yeah, that's long story short. He disappeared. But Victor, Anthony, and Mike lived together in college, and that was the holy trinity.
Well, I don't know about holy, but
Yes, we worship
ass
you
holy
guys.
trinity. No, but yeah, we were a clique. You know, we
Yeah.
all met our freshman year of college in 2004 at UCI. Dance was for sure the definitive thing that like brought us together.
Yeah.
Mike asked us to participate in a CASA, Korean American
Yeah,
Student
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Association's like dance off. So it was a freshman dance off. He asked us to join the Korean Association crew to do their freshman dance off, where literally that club puts freshmen together, puts a routine on them. They compete at some fucking club in LA somewhere, and it's like the schools that battle it out. Like
Yeah, it's
UC
so dope.
Irvine versus UCLA. We do this for Chinese Association too, for all Cal and stuff. But same thing. This is for freshmen, for Koreans. We were so cocky. Even me, who had never danced a fucking ever.
Already
but
cocky.
I was in a squad with like Mike and Victor, so I was like, oh my god, like it just
Yeah.
was dripping with ego, for no reason as an incoming freshman, thinking we were hella tight. I was not, for sure. I was worst. Always will be, probably. But we go and UCLA smokes us, and like it just annihilated. I remember we just got destroyed that day, but it was so funny because I think people that go through struggle get closer than people who just share like wins and stuff.
Totally.
And I remember that being really the catapult of like my dance journey. Well, obviously it wasn't a career at the
So
time.
a journey of revenge, you would say.
Low key, yeah. And to the point where I was so like I'm so petty. I'm like Steve Petty almost. That when I remember promising to myself that I would come back every year and assist a freshman to beat
Oh, that's dope.
LA, and we did that. Every year I came back and I was a part of Casa Freshman Dance Off as like a choreographer or whatever.
Oh.
We won every single time.
I've always been curious what your motivation was to keep helping.
That
team.
that was a very petty one, but
Yeah.
there was like maybe as a young kind of like about to be like director of different things in dance.
Yeah.
I think that there was like a natural calling for me to want to put myself in that position to like create, direct,
yeah.
figure things out. You know what I mean? Like the strategy of showmanship and competition is always a fun thing for me. But point is, going back to us three going through stuff like that and then just like clicking up and then dancing, because all of us went separate ways but still stayed homies, right? Like Mike went on to audition for Cabo Modern, I went on to audition for CADC. Victor ended up joining Six Step with you, what I
which
mean?
is crazy that you guys are all in different teams. And it's crazy that as long as I've known you, we've always been on different teams, but very close circles.
Yeah.
Like we had the same friends, but we never like did performances together or anything.
Yeah, to the point where, you were freaking living with Victor and Mike and everybody in that house, which we'll get to in a second too. But the cool thing about Yo Mama Crew, I think as well, is that that's how we like Yo Mama Crew is even what brought me here, to like JK. Like,
Right. That's
if
how
Yo
you met
Mama
them,
Crew,
right?
didn't get booked to be on the Tick Tick tour, Tick Tick 2, I believe, and we got Chad and Can being our techs
Yay,
in the
thanks,
back
Chad
over
and
here
Can.
for Periodics. Periodics was just on a tear, and they were doing their
Yeah.
second tour in Australia, where their headline is called the Tick Tick Tour Part 2, I believe. And that's where Just Kidding Films was being brought out, so like Bart, Joe, and Gio. And that's when like Joseph Vincent, J.R. Aquino, the Architects that had like Puspos on it, to who else was there? Chani.
Damn, just all-time all-stars.
And then Yo Mama Crew. And Mike couldn't make it to that particular event, so it was just me, Victor, and then Lawrence Cal. because Lawrence subbed in
Right,
for Mike, and then we
right,
did a
right.
show there, and that's literally how I met like Bart, Joe, and Gio and stuff. And since then, it was like coming on to JK Films, becoming a member of JKNews, all that stuff. That's literally the whole story. But it came from Yo Mama Crew being like our thing. Wasn't even Kendra's.
Dude, it's so funny that like I feel like my first impression of you looking back, like this is 2006 or 2007. How old were you at that time? Sophomore in college.
Sophomore in college makes me what, like 19, 20?
Dude, my impression of you, I thought you were like the brainiac guy. I thought you were like the smart guy. Because like you had Victor, Mike, and you. And for some reason, I think I had gotten really close to Victor because he was always coming to practice and shit. But then like, and then I knew Mike a little because I'd went to Kaba parties.
Yeah.
And like talked to him there. But I didn't really know you. So I just assumed that you were quieter than them. So I just assumed you were smarter. So I was like, oh, that's a smart guy. The taller guy's a smart guy.
Now you know I'm louder than them, so I mean I must be.
But I didn't know that for years. I didn't know
Must
that
be
until I
the
moved
idiot.
in with until like 2000. I want to say like 2009 when I moved in with Victor is when I really heard your actual voice. And I was like, oh damn, this guy's cool.
Dude, similarly, you were just a mystique to me, like just a very powerful and edgy aura of an image, but I never really like knew that you were very much so a fucking goofball.
Freaking dork, yeah.
Cause like when you, if you don't like, actually, let's talk about the dance part about our expressive nature. If somebody doesn't know you and
Yeah.
they see your dance style, it is both. That's why me and Mike always call it sacrificial, because you're fucking throwing your body in
Yeah.
places that like
That's my favorite.
that's painful. That
Yeah.
looks like it would be painful for a number of everybody else on the planet. But when you do it like that and you don't know who you are, obviously you look very, very edgy and like
Oh,
a certain type of rough.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
One man mosh pit.
Kind
deal.
of. So when you don't know, there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then like when you learn about you, when you get to know you and you realize that this guy's willing to do those moves, but like, I don't know, like in a onesie or in a dress or like, against the wall or to break different things, that's totally different. I'm like, this fool's a freaking goofball, And it wasn't until I feel like, well, there's many instances, but what really got me was your fucking IG stories.
Oh wow, that later? That was like
it's because all the other stuff
15
was
years later.
all the other stuff was still really cool.
Oh,
Like whether,
wow.
whether like you guys are ABDC champions and you're like living at Foo's house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hosting these giant
Hey,
parties.
you used to come to those. That was dope.
Yes, I did. Had a
Thank
great
you
time.
for coming.
Or like hosting like the Halloween parties for Quest.
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
or playing the piano like fucking reincarnated Mozart. Like there were elements of things that you would do that were very standout, edgy, and like really amazing, but it didn't necessarily paint like goofball.
Oh.
Or goofball's a too fucking lackadaisical word. But it's just there's very a funny charisma.
Wow. You know what's weird is like I think also I was so shy around you guys remember when I lived with I think we were living in Costa Mesa and it was like all your friends lived in the house I lived in. And
Yeah.
you would come over, Tony Tran would come over. And like I was always so shy to interact with you guys because I didn't know the dynamic.
And maybe that's why I thought you were just a
Yeah.
nerd, because I was like, he's like really shy and not coming out, but everything there's like, it's like all Final Fantasy. There's like
Yeah.
nothing but like gameplay. I'm like only learning that you're like a fucking game nerd.
I would always just be in my room playing video games when you guys were over, and then I would always be like, "Man, I hope one of those dudes knocks on the door and asks if they can play." But like, because I didn't know how to fucking invite you guys in. But like in my head, I'm like, yeah, maybe at some point I'll just turn this shit up, and they'll hear Mario, and they'll go, "Hey, what are you doing there?" And
That's
bully
so
their way into the
funny.
room, and I can go, "No, guys."
Yeah, we probably should have gotten a lot closer a lot sooner,
Yeah.
but life works the way that it works.
It's because there were so many different webs. Like you guys were connected through UCI, through like the frats, through so many different ways, and I was like, these guys are cool.
My true and I say I go back to the charismatic, funny, all this personality stuff, because you've taken so much time in things like IG stories to like write things out, showcase stories,
to
like
be totally disposed.
yeah, just crack up about stuff. So there's like a particular articulation of that experience. But like what my real game changing experience with you was, like in terms of like I think what truly elevated our friendship are definitely two things. One, was the Piano Man.
Oh, the
Like
the Culture Shock project.
when I was directing Culture Shock LA back in 2011 to like 12, 13, 14, I don't know, something like that, around that time frame. I had the greatest time. You know what I mean? It was like it wasn't necessarily for work. It wasn't like this like career. It was like a nonprofit hip hop education organization. You know what I mean? That goes out to like underserved communities and like uses hip hop. You know, it was just good people. So we did the best with what we could as a nonprofit to put together like fun shows and stuff. But at the end of the day, like as a creator, I'm still trying to like do something different, do something fresh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I get this idea to, and again, this idea spawned because of me knowing you and your ability. You know, when like you're only as good as like, you know, as a cook, like the ingredients that you have type stuff. Of course you got your skills, but like with whatever you have, right? I mean, you were in my circle of vicinity, and it just like was the ember to a flame that eventually became like a forest fire of an idea. But like I was like, man, like Ryan can basically hear any song and compose like like variations of that song, of that tune, to make it both original and fresh and noticeable of what it is. And then he can also mash it into like 18 other songs that you request. And like that's, imagine like being a dance team director and then being like, these are the 6 songs we want to compete to, and then make a mega mix. That's already hard as fuck for somebody to like figure out transitions when the BPMs are different, or when the mood doesn't make the right, you know, that's why you always get these mega mixes of just random sounds. But when you're doing it like actually musically with like piano keys and stuff like that, it's you only have the one instrument, and this is just how I perceived it. You know, you don't get to add like, you know, this fucking all these hi-hats to your crazy booms, a giant explosion. It's just the keys that you're playing with. So you actually had to compose this entire like symphony for us. You know what I mean?
I feel like that came at a really, really good time, because
What do you
like,
mean?
so like, you and Mike basically came over and you guys were like, hey, so you know how you can just play anything? Can you just like chain all these songs together? And it was like 16 something songs. And I was like, yeah, sure. But like, that's something I always wanted to do in the dance community and never got to do it, because I always felt like, oh, if I want to do that, I would have to be the one to bring it up. And that sounds so like, I guess like selfish to be like, hey guys, why don't we all dance to my shit? Like that would never happen in a million years. But then you asked,
sure.
then you asking me was like, the timing was amazing, because I think I was still super bummed out at that time, because I had to move back home because on tour I tore my ACL.
Oh,
and
that
then
time.
and then I healed for like a year, and I wasn't dancing or doing that much, so I was living at home in Downey. I remember you guys came over to my actual parents' house, and I was like, Mom, this is Anthony and Mike. We're going to go in my room now and make a show. My mom's like, okay, go. You want to eat later? Like super, like I felt like a kid. I was like, God damn it. And then when you said you wanted to do this thing, I remember the first thing was like, your example was like, or Darren, you and Darren and Mike, your example was like, can you do something like Sam Smith mixed with Final Fantasy? And I was like, are you jerking me off right now? Because I just came. Like it was like the requests were so on brand with like shit that I genuinely enjoy doing. Which is why I was like, yes, all across the board, no matter what. Like I would do this every time, like 100%.
You know, that's actually nice to know in a funny way, because not to say this takes anything away, but I thought you were doing it just because you were super nice.
No,
not
I
necessarily
really
because like
liked it.
that was like your pocket of what you would enjoy in that moment.
Dude, that is the most pocket thing I've ever done in my life. So like for people that don't know, like
that's amazing.
One of my jobs is I do performance mixes for stage and TV and movies. And it's kind of like after doing Quest mixes for so long and 6-step mixes, certain other people like Olympic skaters or people that do ballroom or whatever, they're just like, hey, I want to mix like that for what I do. So then I'll do it for like the Chinese TV shows, or for the UCLA gymnastics. Like it's the same formula, but very rarely do I ever get to go full piano. Very rarely, because nobody
and
really.
piano's like your foundation, like your basis for all of it, right?
That's underneath everything I do. So like it's basically the manual. It's like the stick shift version of the automatic, which would be like digital. to me.
That's fucking crazy. And for everybody who doesn't know, like, I like to think, and again, without any offense, I like to think that Brian plays piano better than he dances. And I think he dances, obviously,
That is
award-winning.
so messed up, bro. You don't even know.
Award-winning champion right here.
I'll honestly think I do too. That's not to mean like I'm so good, but I think just the amount of years I've spent for piano has been like what, since age 6.
Dude, I can still go back to that Culture Shock show and watch it.
I love
and
that shit. Yeah.
The music, it's crazy because it's like that weird shit in your brain chemically or whatever. Where it's like music can also like smell. It can bring back memory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Memories.
Like
Yeah.
seeing the video is like, oh yeah, of course it's nostalgic,
Dude.
But hearing the music gives me the feeling of that time. It like totally holds on to that era and that time frame, and it puts every emotion back into play.
Seeing you guys do it was like another thing though, because I purposely didn't want to watch anything. Like you guys were sending me like rehearsal shit. I was like, I don't want to see none of that. I want to see it at the show.
Yeah.
And I like saved my virginity for that. And once it went, I was like, I think I cried, bro. I was like, this is a dream come true for me, and I will never tell them because I'm not gay.
I went so far in the requests. Like, I think just having somebody who is like willing one, talented two, and then just like knew that you could deliver. I think I was almost abusive with it.
No, nothing was ever
because it was like,
overreaching.
hey, can you go into Jaws here? Because I'm gonna buy a remote control blow up balloon shark. Do you remember that shit?
Yes.
And then I literally got this blow up shark that it blows up, and then it's got a little machine fan that's on it, and then you can RC it.
Yeah.
And then we threw it into the stage, and then we had it fly over the crowd. And it's like, because I wanted to do this stupid little gimmick, Ryan had to mix in the Jaws theme. And then there was also a moment where it's like, we want to have like a Superman. You know what I mean? Like a guy literally comes back. There's a whole rewind section.
Bo
and
with the
forward,
cape.
and Bo comes in, and it's like Superman. It was maybe even a Back to the Future moment.
Yep, there was a Back to the Future moment.
You know what I mean? There was just things that we thought were cool, but because we had somebody who I just knew could do it, we were able to exercise that creatively.
Dude, I loved every single request. Like even if it sounded like more of a job, I love to do it because that's my favorite thing is when when I would stream and I would just freestyle music and then people would ask for like, I don't know, Sandstorm mixed with Fergie. Like I love shit that doesn't make sense and it's difficult to do. And every time you were like, I'm sorry, but can we please? I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
What is that impression of me?
It's Dainty Anthony Lee.
Why do you put Dainty Anthony on
I hate
blast?
to be a burden. Doma.
I am a little bitch like that.
No,
though.
it was like I loved it because also Culture Shock LA at the time had so many of my friends in it. Like at Chris Quenza, Jolie, Scarlett.
Yeah.
Like so many people that I knew, and then Bo and Jillian. And then and Darren and you, I just can name them forever. But it was so cool. It was like seeing a mashup of time and people that I've known. And it was like an out of body experience seeing it. So it's called The Piano Man, and it's on, I think it's on YouTube still.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
I love, that's, to this day, still probably one of my favorite creations ever. But
Dude,
I think that, again, that just brings me back to a time where I think my career hadn't like taken off by any means. So I think as a creator, I was so free of any like pressures.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the last time for me personally where I feel I didn't have to think about anything beyond creation and joy. Mm-hmm. You know, and not to say that I didn't do anything better in the future, but it's just like as an artist, right? When you mix your, you know how it is, when you mix profession with your artistry, it's just a different cocktail. No matter what, like, you know, you put two different colors of ingredients into something, it's just going to be a new color.
Right.
Like and you can't separate those things all the time. Those are always going to be some sort of like blend back and forth. But that was like at a time where I feel like it was the last step right before my actual like career in dance was going to take off. So I felt like I had the ambition and the vision without the whatever pressures of like needing to outdo myself or, you know, make money off of it or anything like that. So it was like one of my favorite times in my entire dance journey.
Dude, I didn't know that. That's cool. I didn't know that you looked at it with that much like value. because I did. I definitely didn't talk about it too much, but
Dude, the Piano Man
it's
is
massive.
is for sure one of my most. It's just the best time. It's one of the best times. I remember there was this moment where we're rehearsing at Boogie Zone Utopia down in like Torrance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in the big room with like the main rest of the team and like, you know, Mini Shock, Mighty Shocks, Future Shocks, all the little kids, and we're putting together different parts of the number or whatever, right? Not Minis and Mighties, that's the benefit show, but just, you know, like all just like different segments with the other team. And then I have Bo and Jillian go work on their mini duet section in just like one of the smaller rooms.
Yeah.
So I just give them a couple hours or whatever, you know, and then as the team's working on stuff, I go out and I'm checking on them. And they're like sweating. The music just played, and again, everywhere in all these studio rooms, like your mix is playing from different segments, right? So it's just such a cool thing to like also just know we have like original music on this in a unique way.
Yeah.
And then they're like sweating. They come out. I'm like, "How you doing?" They're like, so you think you can dance or what? You know what I mean? Because they knew that what they had just put together was just so fun, but it was also it was a big ask. You know, like in these community competitions and shows, oftentimes people they just choreograph a segment, 30, 40 people learn it, and then it's like you present the choreo. It's never so focused on, and especially during this is like 10 years ago. You know, it wasn't so focused on a small amount of people.
Right.
But I'm over here knowing what Bo and Jillian can do as individuals and knowing the magic that like nobody needs to support that. Actually, everybody needs to get out of the way to see the strength of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like
superstars for sure.
just like having that confidence too. Same thing, like you mentioned, just a bunch of our friends, just in that era and that time, just knowing that you could rely on the people, whether it's like on the dance floor or composing the music to put this whole thing together and collaborate. I think that also was such a joyous thing.
In the early days, did you never want to compete on like or audition for like those TV dance shows that were popping up left and right back in the day?
I not really, because I also know that when I like got signed to an agent and I did like auditions, and I told the story at JKNews too, like auditions wasn't ever really my thing.
No, it wasn't your thing.
And I also think it's because I don't hot take, but just for the sake of like this conversation, I don't think like I'm like me being a dancer is my thing. I think I love creating.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I do love things like choreographing and sequencing combos and putting them together and seeing it happen. But even me, particularly like choreographing stuff and then like needing to be at the forefront of it, like that's not necessarily like this is me, this is what I do. Actually, like even my heart now yearns to create more and not be visually like the person who's doing that choreography. And even choreography I think is too small a word nowadays too. I just like starting at zero and then a product gets finished.
Yeah.
Right? And the process is always different and that's what's fun to me.
Right.
But like when the product is done, I just like knowing that I created something. But like I never saw myself as
You don't want to
like,
be the product, basically.
not necessarily.
Yeah.
Like and I also just don't think I trained like that. I don't train the way certain people train. Like where some people, and respectively so, they put in so many hours in training into like their sessions, figuring out their combos, their moves, their signature moves, like the physicality and the technique of certain things. Like I think I put in the same amount of time to things like sequencing moves.
Yeah.
Or to things like, you know, if it wasn't physically difficult, it was mentally innovative or unique or standout-ish. Like I think I put in a lot of times and I just enjoyed that, and I would revere like the people that put in a lot of time to their movement technique. You know what I'm saying? But that's why you don't see me in things like, you know, just a bunch of freestyle battles or jams all the time, because I enjoy that as a fan.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with like Anthony Lee, the dancer, choreographer, Kinjas or whatever. That's just me as a dance fan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I don't put in that time. I don't put in that same drive. I don't have that ambition.
Wasn't it crazy? I feel like, I don't know if any generation will have it exactly the same way, but it was a trip growing up in the dance industry and community and slowly seeing different pockets of friends just get famous. That was such a... Like, it was a shock every time.
Every time.
People care about us, you know, like our world. And then you'll just see, like, all of a sudden, Yuri's this, like, superstar. And then, you know, Ben's up here. And, like, all these people that we thought knew were superstars.
Totally.
And then they just, like, blow up. It was crazy to see.
Dude, I remember, and again, not to like fucking sound like the old people, but
It's okay. We are the old people now.
it's true. Like my first YouTube video, I think I posted in 2005.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when we posted this like remake of the Yo Chris Brown music video. I remember we filmed it. In like 4 hours. We edited in 4 hours. I remember thinking to ourselves like, "Whoa, dude, 8 hours. We finished a video." And I was a film major, so like
film major?
I was a film major, but
Throughout
this is, like,
UCI
yeah.
the whole time?
My first 2 years I was undecided.
Oh.
And then I declared a
I didn't
film
know
major.
that. Cool.
So I was a film and media studies major under the School of Humanities. So I was going to things like Production 101, and you know, this is like mini DVs. This is like actual film at the time where you had to like convert it into a digital file. And if you fuck up, or you know what I mean, like you're losing your entire project. Or like rendering takes overnight for certain things at like 480p. Like we were not in a fucking professional era like it is today, where everybody can do way better work on just your cell phone. Like this is like you had to work your ass off to put one clip with another clip and then put music on it. You know what I'm saying? And then make it shareable as an edit at the time. And so, you know, during this time, there were things like megaupload.com or whatever to try and share files. But then when YouTube was new, I remember uploading that video. And when there was like 15 views on it, because we like sent it out to our homies, we're like, yeah, dude, our homies are seeing this.
Just like so happy about it.
And then when like there was 50 views, I remember like the slight confusion of like, did you send this to anybody else? You know what I mean?
It?
Yeah, and then when there's like 150 or 500 views, I believe, you know, I remember hitting up Mike and just being like, yo, dude, like, I ain't got 500 friends. I don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah.
You know, so like just being in that time where, and then I went to SPOT like that following summer, student parent orientation program, and I'm a staffer, right, for UCI. And then I'm like, we're walking around the cafeteria, I'm holding my tray of food, and somebody comes up to me and they're like, are you Anthony Lee? And this is the very first time that ever happened.
That's the very, very first one.
Very first
That's cool.
one.
You
I remember.
remember
I was
that,
out at fucking cafeteria at UCI. He's like, are you Anthony Lee? I'm like, did I do something wrong?
And this is way before people started adding fuck hinges at the end of that, right?
Yes, yeah. That didn't happen until fucking Steve. I wish Steve was never born. But other than that.
Right. In the cafeteria at school.
Yeah, and I genuinely, this never happened before, so I thought I did something stupid or wrong. You know what I mean? That was the easiest place to equate something to. And they were like, did you do the Yo Chris Brown music video remake? And I was like, whoa, yeah. Right? And they're like, yeah, I saw you at our high school rally at Cerritos High School.
Oh, shit.
Because you remember what a fucking high school pep rally, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember thinking a high school pep rally was like, if you were anybody who's anybody, like, and you were featured at high school, that's like a big deal.
That's a big deal, yeah. You're a big man on campus, basically.
You're like literally a mega star, you know? And then somebody's like, yeah, Cerritos High School. And again, I grew up around the Cerritos High School area too, you know? It's like, wait, what? Like, why would anyone play our video at a high school pep rally? And just thinking like, yo, we're in a totally different time, you know what I mean? So seeing people just become quote unquote something was just, and my closest connection was Mike's song, right? So when ABDC 2008 season 1 happens on MTV, and I remember he's on a break from the show, so I'm like, yo, let's go to DMB's, because that was what us UCI kids would do, right?
Yeah.
You want to go for the drinks, let's go to DMB's. And we fucking go to DMB's, and I shit you not, like all these Asian cats, frat boys, all these frat people and stuff like that, all these random fans would be like, oh my God, you Mike Song from Kaba? And this was the first time shit like this was really happening. And it was just such a trip. Yeah. You know, like, I was never quicker to be like, I'll take a photo for you guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like, what is this? Mike's song, let's go, you know?
I was so happy for Mike, but at the same time, I was pretty jealous, not of like jealous like I didn't want them to rise. I was like, the feeling of people coming up to me going, yo, you ever seen this team Cabo Modern? And it's the same shit I've been telling them for years, and they just didn't listen. Is like, it made me mad to be like, oh, now you care about it. You know what I mean? Like, well, immaturely.
Who would have known though? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What a phenomenon that was gonna be. Like, that was
huge.
Like a fucking phenomenon. You know?
It was massive.
But yeah, who would have known? You know, it was a fucking really, really wild time too. I think it was just these TV shows for dancers, like we talk about this on like different pods, but like it wasn't just about people getting famous. It like shifted and changed the culture of the industry, right?
No.
Like we barely mentioned some of these topics before on JKNews, but like a dance level Asian suddenly becoming a thing.
Yeah.
To like, you know, back in the day when people would go out and teach in like Europe and stuff like that, everything was about like Britney Spears choreographer or like Janet Jackson choreographer or JT or whatever. And it wouldn't even sometimes mention the name of who that choreographer was. It was the credit was more important than the person.
Yeah.
And artistry. And like it wasn't until these dance shows that changed.
Yeah.
And witnessing that was also like, whoa.
Because nobody was interested until the dance shows came along.
What was your first moment for you, like where you're like, holy shit, this is the ride? You know what I mean?
You know what it was? It was because when I did So You Think You Can Dance the very, very first season, 2005. Prior to that, I had never done any audition. I'd never had a professional job like of any type. I didn't even know choreography counts very well. The maximum I did was on Six Step as a competitor, and of course we found ways around learning how to count. But the shock of being on that show, and this was like a thing maybe that only applies back then, but going on the forums. So You Think You Dance used to have its own forum. But now it doesn't. You don't need shit like that for anything. But back then, all the communication about the show, whether fans are discussing it, all took place on the Fox.com website. And So You Think had its own like thread. And I remember going on there while I was still competing, and I was sequestered, so I couldn't go anywhere. I lived in the hotel. You weren't allowed to see anybody. And then we would all just, the contestants would just go on the forum to see what people are saying about us. At the time, our only social media was MySpace. And back in the day, they had a backwards view on it. So networks would make you delete your MySpace if you were doing something like this. If you were doing Idol, if you're doing anything, you would have to delete it. Which doesn't make any sense, but
that make sense.
Yeah, they saw it so backwards. So we deleted it. We had no way of fans talking to us or telling us nothing. You go on the forum and then you just read what people are saying about you. And then the first time I saw somebody say, "Oh yeah, I'm a Ryan fan," and it like almost justified my existence. Because until then I had like no confidence. Yeah, I was very
crazy.
Like low confidence kind of person.
What year was the first season? So you think
2005.
Oh my god, that's my first YouTube video right there. Oh
yeah,
my god.
So then like seeing somebody say that and like feeling like I have a responsibility now to uphold their confidence in me. You know, it was a good feeling, but at the same time, of course, if you read the forum and you like the compliments, you're going to get affected by the negatives too.
Yeah.
And at the time, reality TV was a different beast.
Yeah.
And you know, negatives were just as big as positives. And then I started going through the rabbit hole of like reading about people that didn't like me, and it would just break my heart. And everybody would go through this kind of like up and down thing, like all the contestants, because we didn't know yet. No one had ever primed us that like, hey, don't read about yourself online, because that wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, for
and then
sure.
We learned the hard way. Like everybody had these identity crises. The abilities would go haywire. Like you just wouldn't be able to perform or do your thing because you would just be thinking so much about how somebody hates you, some random person.
That's
was weird.
Bananas.
Yeah, it was weird because you couldn't resist looking at it. Be like, you know it's bad for you, but no one's ever written about you anywhere on a blog or nothing. So you're like, what are they saying? What are they saying? And if it's bad, it just like destroys you.
I do remember watching you on the first season, and I remember, again, we're all ignorant because this is like the very first time it happened, but I remember thinking, it's like, there's no way like a hip hop dancer or a b-boy is gonna get that far. Period. Yeah. I was just like, there's some sort of unwritten politics to like the dance hierarchy.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And you know, it's not untrue.
No, yeah,
in one sense, for
it is,
sure, right?
I think, true.
Yeah. So I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, yo, dude, how's Ryan gonna like, you know, do well on this?
I think it was true then, but then following that season, people would train specifically for the show, knowing they would have to do Latin ballroom, all that shit.
Well,
like,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
We didn't know
you
nothing.
had to do Latin, and I remember when your hair was all like combed over, and you were in like fucking bell bottom pants and stuff,
right?
With like a plunging V-neck to your belly button or whatever it was you were wearing. I remember being like, did this guy either sell out or is this
not hip hop,
or is this amazing? I remember being like, whoa, like, because it was low key, like if people who pay attention to the scene, just straight up again, and we weren't even like friends back then or anything like that. I just remember being like, this looks funny, right? Just you coming out.
Yeah.
But then when you did it, I was like, because they had the whole pre-interview packages, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
like you would know that
packages.
you were gonna kind of do stuff like that, and it'd be like, this is so funny. Like look at this b-boy trying to do
I know.
like, salsa
Fish out of
or whatever,
water, right?
you know?
Yeah.
And then you come out and you're like full outfit and you're like committed, and I was like, whoa, he's pretty good,
Dude, I worked so freaking hard to get that routine right.
Dude, it was.
I-
It was
dude.
it was one of those, yeah, fish out of water for sure, fish out of water, but like surviving. You know, it was one
Yeah.
of those things where you're like, wait a minute, you don't have to be one way. You can just do multiple things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was just
Yes.
simple shit.
Intro
blew
to
your mind.
bisexuality. Yes.
And then when you was on the chopping block and you had to fucking do your freestyle,
My
Poison,
solos. Yeah. Wow, you remember this song too? Jeez.
Dude, Poison, of course, man. Like
That's
I
funny.
think that to me, from a fan of Ryan in the entire career and the length of your life, that I think will be a top 3 moment.
That's dope,
for sure,
man.
because
I
I,
really
think
felt
what
like-
it said,
yeah.
what it said in that moment, it's like you were on the chopping block. I think that's the context.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. You're about to be cut, basically.
So,
So,
seeing,
save your life.
you know,
yeah.
you don't see people fight for their lives through dance. You don't
That's
see
true.
that
That's
at
not a
that
thing.
time.
Yeah, prior.
You know
That's
what I'm
true.
saying? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not a battle. It's like a
Right.
if he doesn't pull something out of his ass right now, he's going home.
It's like you
and
have
it's
to
over.
you have to kill it off.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you did something that you just never really did before. Like I never seen that headstand like that before. You know what I mean? I saw a back head spring like flip thing where you
Yeah.
like tap your head and the
Did
momentum.
I tell
of
you how I first did that? The very, very first one?
mention it again?
It was at All Cal.
Oh
know
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Because I was trying to go all the way over, but I messed up because I was trying to impress friggin' Cheryl. Like, I really wanted to date this girl who didn't want to date me. And she was like in the audience. And I was like, oh, I have a solo coming up. I got to make it the best one of my life. And then it's at Union Station where it's like basically 100-year-old tile. So it's like the hardest surface you could ask for. And then I wanted to just do it where I bounce on my head and stand up and look all cool. And I was going to look at her. But then I slipped and I landed straight on my head and just went thong. And then I made eye contact with her anyway, upside down. And then I remembered after that show at All Cal, people were coming up and going, yo, dude, that was tight. Never seen that before. How'd you think of that? And I was like, just in the lab, just like working on it. I tried to like play it off like that's something I had in the pocket. But
Meanwhile, you had a concussion.
yeah, meanwhile, I was like, what the hell? How do I do that again? How do I replicate it?
Dude, that was
Yeah.
insane. And you could tell when it's like when you watch somebody do something in a battle and like let's say they like, they do 90s or 2000s, but they did like 2 extra spins than they normally do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they get up with the fire like the Holy Ghost is in them. That was like your energy. You hit this thing
Yeah.
and you're like there for a second. Your
That
neck's
was
like,
me, yeah.
And then you get up, it's like, whoa!
Right, because like until then, like tons of dudes were already like showling it where they would just go bong bong. There was maybe 1 or 2 people that I remembered being able to stick it, but not that long. Like
Yeah,
nobody
that
would
was a-
pike it like a freaking location pin.
And that
on
was,
a Google
that's
map.
that was always, and again, I love that, I do choreography because at the end of the day, like straight up choreographers get paid the most in the entire dance world. When I
Yeah,
say
dude,
that.
for real.
Once I recognized that, I was like, this is where I'm going. But when I first started to dance, my first thing that I was doing
Yeah.
was breaking.
That was your very
It
first
was
thing.
my very first thing. It's what my first love for dance.
So Mike, you and Mike battling at school made you want to be a b-boy?
Dude, I don't know, man. I had never danced formally or like officially, so I was like I was like crib walking and whatever, you know what I mean? When I
Little
first,
bits here and there.
yeah,
of
when I
different
was,
things.
I just saw things. I was trying to be Michael
That's
when I would
funny,
battle
dude.
Mike, but it wasn't until we become freshmen. I think it was CADC auditions are at the beginning of the year, and Kaba auditions are like later on, like in January, at the fiscal year or whatever. And Mike's about to like audition for CADC, so I was like, oh, maybe I should try this. I've never really done shit like this.
Mike was
before.
gonna audition for
He went
CADC.
he went to auditions, right? And then I think it was like people
Oh.
like Ben Chung was like, nah, dude, don't audition. Come audition for Kaba.
Wow.
So Mike's obviously like, oh, okay. So he
Yeah, because
waits.
it's Ben. Like,
Yeah,
who's
so
not
so
gonna?
he doesn't audition for DC, but obviously I never learned this shit before either. Even though I went to auditions with him, like the learning of it. So I don't audition because I've never done this, and the only free club was UCI B-Boy Club.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have to
Yep.
audition. You just go to the ARC, the Anteater Recreation Center, once a week, and then you just session, and people will teach you, and it's just like an open space.
Yeah.
So I would go there with Victor. I didn't have to audition for anything. I didn't have to be good at anything. I could just learn. So I started b-boying first. And, for all the wrong reasons, just trying to, like, look hot for girls type stuff. Like, no foundation. Let's go right to windmills. Right?
Yeah, let's spin.
Like Can's journey right now. Right, Can?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can, where's your foundation right now?
It's nowhere.
Okay.
Nowhere to be found.
But he's posting his, like, continuous windmills every
Yeah,
other day,
dude.
right? Because it's, like, the most fun part.
It is.
Because that's what b-boying gives you. When you, like, stick a freeze, that trumps
Dude, yeah.
every other feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, that's why, I don't know, I still love it. I still love watching it. I still love being a part of it in some way.
Damn, that's cool. I didn't know that was your first thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was my first, and then I got injured all the time because I was weak and not good. And then I remember
you were pretty skinny back then.
Thank you.
Like, but not like you were like lanky skinny, which
David
is
still
like
calls me fat, but yes, I was lanky, skinny.
you were. Well, the only time I remember you gaining weight was after you quit dance.
That makes a lot of sense.
You had a weird like. So from
Makes a
my
lot of
side,
sense.
I remember you had this like moment where word around the house I lived in was that Anthony doesn't dance now, and he got a man's job, and he's
Sales.
like, yeah, sales.
Yeah.
And then that's when I remember you were coming over, and then you just looked so different. Like you just looked sad.
Say different again in a different word. 3-letter word starts with an F, ends with an at.
You came by. I just remember you looked so like your spirit was gone, and I was like, "Hey man, how's the job going?" And you
Why
were
are you
like,
laughing, Can?
Because he's trying not to say it.
"No, I mean that's like the least of the change. The major thing was you were just so like gone. Like your face was just like I was like, "Hey, how's the job?" And you were like, "No, I don't." You like didn't want to talk about it.
This is the depressing moment where I'm gonna ask Chad to pour me a shot.
But think about this, like the thing that always trips me out, which I always want to credit you for, is that like, imagine if you never stopped that path. There would be no
sales?
there would be no Kinjas. There would be like none of that. Like the fact that you came out of that, I mean, you could have become like wildly successful in sales. That would be fine, but
That is my biggest regret.
what, not being successful in
Yeah.
sales?
Yeah, my biggest regret is coming back to dance. No,
Stupid.
no, for sure, that was crazy.
Because I actually physically saw that fork in the road, which is crazy to me because, people you might tell your story somewhere and people would just imagine
I
and go,
probably
yeah.
should tell that story right now. Actually, I've never really talked about that entire journey.
Yeah.
I am gonna take a shot right
it's
now
wild.
because that
Do
sounds
it.
fun.
Dancing piss.
You almost had a completely different life.
Yeah. So, man, this is such a weird time in my life. I just graduated. Mike was, doing his whole Cabo Modern post ABDC life where it was just like this conundrum of constantly traveling,
Yeah.
constantly
Living it up.
teaching,
He was,
living
like,
it
big
up.
time, yeah.
He was huge.
And then
know?
we were on our way. We were about to do ABDC.
Yeah. And I was nowhere near like that world. And I, when I graduated, I remember one of the first places I applied to ended up being one of these sales jobs, right? And it was one of those business to business ones where like people in suits, they walk around and they just like, they solicit. They like walk into stores and they sell shit. They're selling like anything. They're selling stuff from baseball tickets to coupon books to Clippers tickets.
So your job is to sell to stores?
Yeah. So like they put together this back in the day again.
You know what's funny is I had a complete misunderstanding. Somebody had said at the time that you were door to door selling books.
That's as good as it gets. Yeah. That
I
was
didn't
like
understand what it was.
that was
but-
like kind of like the basis of it,
Oh.
right? Like you would go business. It was business to business because it like the maybe the decade right before that, like the 90s, right? People would go door to door.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
residential,
right.
And then suddenly you remember when people would fucking like knock on your residential door and they'd have like the backs of car seats or like different toys.
yeah,
or
yeah,
just,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
a
yeah.
bunch
That
of
doesn't happen no more. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't happen anymore because people probably like die now. But
It's not worth your life. Yeah.
yeah, but that evolved, and then it became like people put on suits. They got like better deals with better clients to offer.
Okay.
And so it got into a realm where like we were walking around in suits and we were working with like the Dodgers or working with like the Oakland A's, or like every almost major sports team around the nation.
Yeah.
Because the whole concept is, especially if you weren't like a top tier sports team, but like you just had a huge stadium with a lot of seats,
Yeah.
they would have excess seats. So then it would make more sense for like those organizations to give away those free seats if they weren't selling them anyway, in order to make sales off the concessions, make sales off of parking, make sales off of whatever.
From heads being in the
Otherwise you just have an empty seat. So they would constantly give us these free coupon seats, and then we would go selling those coupons in a bundle at a discounted package. And people who are familiar, especially like, you know, we're in like Southern California, when we were pushing Dodgers tickets, like all the Hispanics out here, they knew we would come around. So anytime you walked into the right type of shop, people are like, you guys are the Dodgers guys, come over here. So it was it was also for guys that were not afraid to go to different businesses, like guys like me, you could do really well. And I was
So you were not afraid, you didn't have a shyness or like a inhibition?
I'm more one of those guys, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, like, this is stupid. Like, give me that shit. I'll just do it. You know what I mean?
I can
like,
see that. You were good at just cold talking to people.
Yeah, I'm just going to, like, it's like, this is the pitch. Okay, cool. Like, I'm not about this, but let me see if I can do it. And then I'll do it, and I'll be like, I could do it. And I'll be, like, doing it better than half the guys in the office. And I'll be like,
and you're younger. You're like the young buck.
yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this isn't what I want to be or where I want to, you know, go with things, but I'm good at it. And I was just like making money for the first time, truly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, okay. And then I got into the point where I was just also at that point in the in that industry scope where it started evolving in general. So I was part of the test team where we wouldn't walk around business to business. We would go into places like Sam's Club or Costco, and we'd have a booth there, and we would sell different cards at a booth, and we would do even more sales because now people aren't being solicited to. Now they're going to a place where they're already looking to be you know, solicited or sold something.
Yeah.
So it was a more appropriate environment. So we
Right.
would suddenly 10x sales that a person who was walking in the streets would do in one day.
Oh, that's dope. Okay.
So then
yeah.
I was on this team where I would constantly be like the innovative team that would push new initiatives for the company, the major company across the nation. And I would be flown out to like Texas for conventions. So
No way. I didn't know it got that crazy.
It started going really, really well,
Wow.
right? And then basically got to a point where in our branch in Orange County in like Santa Ana or whatever, or Anaheim, the assistant manager there got pushed up to a manager position. So she opened an office in Riverside. That's when I moved to Riverside because I was under her team. So I go out and I work under her team, and I became the assistant manager, and I started running the entire office out there. And the thing is, she was like super lazy and shit, and she was also fucking the fucking old manager for Anaheim anyway. So it was like they were in cahoots in a different way. She was cool, but like she was a little lazy, so I'm gonna keep it real. And I basically ran like the whole Riverside office, right? So then there was a point.
That's how you get promoted, man. You start doing someone else's job. Yeah.
So then there was a point where obviously I was doing well. So even the uppers, they were like, all right, it's time for him to get promoted. Because that's the whole point. You join not to do those sales. You join almost like a 2x2.net kind of marketing kind of
yeah.
You do it because when you get to a different position, all the cronies under you who are doing the sales, you're getting a portion of those profits. You know what I'm saying? So like I was working for about a year and a half to get into this place, and I was killing it, and I was getting to this place, and I'm running the office basically in Riverside. I'm doing hiring, firing, I'm doing like morning meetings. And
I didn't know you got up to that level.
I was so far in that level that it was time for me to get promoted to manager myself. So we were opening my office in Arizona. I was gonna move to Arizona.
You were gonna leave the state.
I had a going away party. They got me a cake. I literally was getting promoted, and Ambu Black Ops, Ambu Black Ops, which was the first performance of Kinja's ever at Vibe, was my going away performance.
I didn't even know that.
So that whole thing came together because I was quitting dance formally, like leaving the scene.
Wow.
And I hit up Mike, and I'm like, yo, Mike, dude, like I'm gonna move to Arizona for this job, and he already knew all this stuff. And I was like, so I want to do one last dance thing.
So that show might not have even been close to what it ended up being had you not been about to leave.
Everything was very like last hoorah kind of like attitude. Woo. That's why when we got there, like in our show, if you watch this first show of Kinja's, like
I love that show.
We're literally
by the way.
We're drinking on stage with all of our college roomies that you lived with.
Yeah,
because it was just
about
it was about getting people to just come out and just have a good time together. We were dancing to "Cause I Got High," and we even asked Jason Park, we're like, "Can we smoke weed on stage?" And he was like, "Dude, that's too far. That's a fire fire hazard. So that's why we just danced because I got high. We were like jacking off in that routine. You know what I mean? Like we're doing
I love
everything
that
as
show,
if it's
dude.
a last hurrah.
Yeah.
Because that was me hanging up my shoes. And
Wow.
I hit up Mike too. When I asked him, I was like, yo, you know, this is my last dance thing. Like, will you do it? He was killing it. He was booking everything. He was like traveling
He was
everything.
gone, dude.
But
That
he
guy
was like,
was
all right, for that month of January, as we get
blocked
ready
off.
for it, he's like, I won't do any gigs.
Ooh, that's
what
a
I'm saying?
big,
Yeah.
that's a big thing to do because business was never booming as hard as it was that
Exactly.
time.
So that was for real, like a going away thing.
Yeah.
And then that was in January, like January 28th or January 31st, 2010. And we finished that thing. We get a standing ovation, obviously,
Dude.
at that show. It was like one of the that's
I
top one
loved
performance of my
that
life.
show.
Hands down. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
where anything else goes
Yeah.
in life, that's still number one. And then that week, I go back into Riverside. I go back to my job. I'm getting ready. This is like maybe like my last month in that office. I'm already looking for apartments. I found an apartment out in Arizona, the whole thing, right? That week, it was a Thursday. And for some reason, I should have saw this coming. But maybe I was just already too like in the momentum of like I'm moving forward, you know? This is like where I'm going to go with shit. That week on Thursday, for whatever bullshit reason, the office and the team wasn't ready for me to leave, so they had to hold me back. Right? My manager,
Hold you back
and
as in
upper
it's just getting
management,
postponed, or hold you back like you cannot be promoted?
both.
Oh.
Both. It was just an indefinite, like, you know, everything's not
So it was a
ready.
boner killer, basically.
Basically, yeah. But what it really came down to, again, like I said just a little bit ago, I was basically running that office. So what really would happen is if I would leave, just like in Anaheim when my manager got promoted, right? When she got promoted, her whole team, including myself, we all left there. And you go with your team. The people you bring in and you train and you hire, they're your team, right? So you leave with your team. At that point, she was no longer working and going to the field because I was doing everything.
Yeah.
So she didn't really have a team, which meant that like if I were to move to Arizona, I would be taking the whole
So
office
she
with
would lose
me.
everyone under her too.
Exactly. So she would literally not
She'd
be
be
doing
asked out,
output.
yeah.
Exactly. So that's why her, and again, she was like in a relationship
prevented
with
you-
the person who was above her that she came from, our team leader.
Yeah.
So then
So
again,
you're being blocked out, basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Damn.
that morning when we got held back, I still kept my cool with it and I still did the morning meeting and stuff. But my main assistant manager, my assistant, who I brought in, who's my number one guy, right-hand man, his name is Derek. We lived together in Riverside. We moved from Anaheim and lived together. We like started this journey and you know, all these promises of like growth and stuff. And we got held back again. That day we quit. We just walked out.
You just cold left.
Yeah, just cold left. We were like, you know, F this, like it's over. And we just left it. And I remember driving home from that Riverside office. And I remember I called my sister because I didn't know who else to hit up. And I remember just crying on the phone as if I had like failed something. Because there was no plan. There's no severance. There's no 2 weeks. There's no other career change or game plan. It was just like a feeling of being held back, failing, or losing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that in combination with the emotions that I had 4 days prior at Vibe, where I had the greatest peak and experience and emotion ever in the history of my entire dance relationship.
Yeah.
And I was leaving that. I was like, let me go deny this thing that brought me absolute happiness. Let me just walk away and hang my shoes up, even though it brought me so much identity and confidence and joy and belonging.
Yeah.
Let me hang that up. Let me go do this thing that I absolutely hate just because I'm decent at it. Get held back, you know what I mean? And then I remember like hitting her up and she was like, it's okay, you know what I mean? Because I thought all the other stupid Asian boy pressures, you know, or anybody in general, it's like I failed. It's been like 2 years since college. I got nothing for myself. I don't have much saved up. I'm living in Riverside and I got to just move back home. Like where I don't have anywhere at home to go. I got to go to my parents. You know what I mean? Everything just felt like.
I'm sure too at the time, like jumping back into dance full time seemed completely like unattainable, huh?
Wasn't even in the books.
Yeah.
Actually, I think
Because everything was moving so fast.
and this was 2009
Yeah.
for me. So then I ended up getting a job from one of my best friends, Sean, who was running Flow Route, which was an internet telephony company, kind of like Vonage back in the day, using like voice over IP internet for phone calls. So he knows my situation. He just hooks me up with a job. Of course I'm not trained. Of course I'm not skilled.
tight.
He just hooks me up with a job.
Good friend, man.
He trains me. I like work there for like only a month or something like that, and then I get recruited by my boy Alex at Collusive,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is a
yeah,
street
yeah.
clothing company,
Right.
So I get recruited to do, because he's like, I heard you did sales. And I was like, yeah, pretty good at sales. He's like, I need somebody to come do sales. I ended up transitioning over there and then doing sales and marketing. But that's how I got back connected to the dance world, because Collusive was
so
big in the
linked
dance
into
world.
dance. Yeah, Collusive
So-
is like the zeitgeist of dance apparel.
It
like
was.
dance team fashion.
You can see that entire era that Collusive had its like, hold
Yeah.
on the entire dance. So you're branding everywhere, every event, every whatever. You know?
Right.
And so that's what got me back into the dance realm, because I ended up being the point of marketing and then seeding out all this clothing.
That's very smart that you were the one doing that, because you already have the trust of like all of the dance.
There was this
community.
hilarious moment actually, because I ended up starting to do a lot of the marketing, and Kyle Deneen was also doing it at that time when I
Yeah.
first came in. But there was one funny mess up I remember that happened, because it was ABDC season 5 during that era, right? And the Collusive art director at the time who was doing a lot of the designs was Josh Ulep, who's brother of
Hazmat.
Hazmat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
The new con is the brother of Josh, right? Hazmat. So then Josh is on ABDC,
Right.
And
Hype 5-0.
as Hype 5-0, and they're competing with Poriotics. And then,
Way
what
better
had
than
happened-
Poriotics. Yeah.
what had happened is we had brought a box of Collusive merch for Hype 5-0. Excuse me. In some sort of confusion, Poriotics thought the box was for them. So for the whole rest of the season, Poriotics has all this Collusive gear that was not ever meant for them, but they got it.
I didn't know that.
And
That's
so
funny.
they're just hella repping. And we had to get and again, this is before I was doing all the marketing and stuff like that too. So
But that's kind of a great mistake, because they end up being the winners, right?
yeah, no, it's wonderful. Kid, you know what I'm talking about? Do you know this story?
You just jacked the whole
I
box.
don't know how we got the shirts, but we did.
Oh man.
But that was just literally how far one, Collusive was in the dance world, and then two, like ironically, after all that sales and stuff like that, I come back and now I'm in this position because I'm like, I know people or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So just it wasn't even about coming back to dance for me.
Yeah.
I just started being surrounded by it again through life, and then it wasn't until 2011 when I got laid off, but not because like the company. There's a lot of business is complex sometimes, and for the sake of the company, everything was amicable, but I did have to get laid off in order for things to like not bring a certain type of liability to me. But I remember it's 2011. The time in which I got laid off was also the time in which me and my longtime girlfriend at that time broke up, and I was living with her in Hollywood, you know her. And then so I'm laid off, jobless, heartbroken from like who I thought I was gonna marry, and then had to like move out of that apartment. So I moved back home in Point Park to my parents.
That is what you call a high value man.
I was fucking miserable. I was like, this is like my lowest probably point ever. You know what I'm saying? In my entire life, because you just felt so broken. You know, this
Yeah,
is now
dude.
like multiple years after graduating college.
It's
and
crazy that I'm rapidly passing you throughout this whole time, and I don't even know that you're that like busted.
dude, I didn't know you're that much of an introvert nerd when you were living with my homies.
Yeah, man, totally.
But I remember, and this is the time where back then, there was not even LinkedIn back then. So if you wanted to apply for jobs and stuff like that, you were going on things like monster.com or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
literally you're looking for jobs. You have to submit resumes all the time.
Yeah.
And there was something
It's almost like a casting site.
Yeah, there was something so demoralizing for me personally, like trying to re-put my resume together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like years after you graduate, and just feeling like, and again, maybe I also have my closest friends around me at that time, people like Victor, people like Mike,
Yeah.
who were excelling at things in ways that industry had never seen before.
Yeah.
And chasing passions in a career that like was so,
Oh yeah, people were making it happen.
yeah,
man.
they were making it happen. So I
crazy.
felt so inadequate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I felt really like there was a lot of things that maybe I didn't ever really give myself a chance to process, but emotionally, for real, I was like low, right? So I remember thinking to myself, there were these periods of times where I put hours into like, it's so depressing to sit there and just submit your fucking resume to
Yeah.
read this job listing, submit, read this, and you're just doing that like fishing, but like shittier. There were even a couple times I went on interviews for different places, and I do fully remember one time I sat in an interview, and you know, standard typical interview
Yeah.
questions like, you know, why do you want to like work here? And I froze because it was so hard for me to lie at that point. In sales, I was
It's like
really
a
good
dance
at
movie.
lying.
You're like, you know what? I don't want to work here.
That was my heart.
Just go
My
out,
heart was like,
dance
I
out of the
fucking
room.
don't want to work here. So instead, I remember looking, I freeze and I was just looking at this lady because my heart wanted to just be like, I don't want to, but I know I'm supposed to say something else, but I can't bring myself to say it. And now this is getting awkward. It was just fucking weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was just a huge
That's the
moment.
truth. Yeah.
And so I go home, failed again, and I'm doing my daily routine. I'm like, I have to, here's my hustle. I have to look up different job listings. And I remember when I would be so at the lowest point and hating that, the only thing that gave me some sort of salvation was freestyling, was just dancing. So I was like,
yeah.
I'm gonna fucking not do this right now, and I'll play some music and get down. And for me, a lot of it was also choreographing, right? Because for some, like, I just felt like if I choreograph, me putting sequences together, like no one could judge that and take that away from me. It was like the only thing I had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
No matter
right.
how much somebody judges my resume, no matter if I get laid off because I wasn't good enough here, if I didn't do a good job here.
It also never needs to be up for judgment.
Exactly.
Which is
like,
the best.
it was
yeah.
just the only thing that I could create and then like hold on to.
Yeah.
Right. So like I would just suddenly start pouring hours into that, and I would have these routines, but I would be broke. So
Yeah.
I would slowly hit up random people in between my like looking for like jobs. I would hit up random people and be like, hey, I'm still around. I still exist. Can I like come teach at your studio? Can I do
Right.
something? And I remember getting like $20 for a workshop and thinking like, yes, I can like buy like
20
boba this week.
bucks?
You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
can do something. I remember when I got offered a job in Culver City's Your Neighborhood Studio. It was $20 per class, and it was once a week. And I would drive from Buena Park to Culver City, which is like the gas money alone is like the whole thing.
Jeez, yeah.
But I was like, if I do this, I can make $80 a month. I can pay for my
$20,
cell
dude.
phone.
What? So just for perspective, what's the highest you've been paid for a workshop for the same amount of time? The highest you've been paid
Like ever in life?
ever in life.
Ooh,
Just to scale for people what $20 is in comparison to this.
maybe like $3,000
Jesus Christ.
for like a 90-minute workshop.
Jeez. 3,000 versus $20,
Yeah,
man.
those are the
for the
best.
same amount of time.
It's just a totally different scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at that time,
Right.
$20 was everything to me, and I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
more important, right? The mentality of it. You know what I mean?
Even just in the hopes that might lead to another $20 next week.
And that's
you
all
know?
it was. And
Yeah.
there was word of mouth. People would be like, yo, Anthony's still dancing, apparently.
It's
And then people are probably like, yo,
It's like
we
a
can get him for
Bigfoot sighting.
$20. You know what I mean? But that's all I had. That's, and I remember like
a great
after-
flyer for your workshop, by the way. Anthony's still dancing, apparently. $20.
But I do remember when I made maybe like $100 in like a 2-week period because of different spot.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I was like, holy shit. I'm like, maybe there's a chance. And one of my most pivotal conversations of all time for my dance career was when I looked at Mike's song and I asked him, and I was like, yo, man, like honest homie to homie, like, do you think that I can like, if I tried to do this dance thing? Because again, this was a very first era in which people started doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It wasn't,
yeah.
it was just a new thing. And I was like, I was
Right.
looking at my
There's
boy
nobody
Mike
to
doing
learn
it.
from. There's no failures to learn
Yeah.
from. It's just this.
And Mike was killing it, you know?
He was
So
killing
I was
it,
like,
yeah.
I was like, yo, dude, like, do you think I could do this? And without hesitation, he's like, yeah. And I was like,
And that's not like homie to homie. That's like he's being real.
yeah. And then he looked at me, he's like, do you know that you've already gotten more dance opportunities in life than so many people who like move from other countries to LA who try?
That's a
and,
good
like,
point.
That's their entire goal.
And that's still the case for a lot of people.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
And I was
true,
like-
yeah.
I was like, oh shit, that's a good point. And I
Yeah,
was
it
like,
is, yeah.
and then the second most important question I asked him, I'm like, will you help me? And he's like, yeah, no hesitation.
How did he help you?
Number one, I think just having somebody say that they would help you is like night
So he
and day
never
of
did
difference.
anything?
Yeah, he never did it.
He just said
Fuck
it.
myself. No. My first time truly traveling internationally for dance was when he brought me as an assistant to Croatia. He didn't need to.
Whoa.
He would have made more money if he didn't. He'd already been going out to countries by himself, but definitely this was his first time going with this promoter, so there was a
Yeah.
comfort in having a friend because like
Yeah.
at the same time, this was also an era where like you didn't know who the wrong promoters were. You
You
didn't
had no
know
idea,
who the
yeah.
bad
And
studios
everybody was
were.
trying to be a promoter.
Exactly.
out of nothing. Like,
and
they
people
were
were getting left in the dust out
Yeah,
there too. People
yeah,
were
yeah.
getting fucking conned or like jacked and all that
Bad
stuff.
jobs
so,
here and there,
You know,
yeah.
so anytime somebody was working with like a new promoter in that era, there was something to being like, you know, bring my manager with me, bring my assistant with me or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just in case the worst happens. You know, so he was willing to bring me. I was super chubby. We got photos from this time. But he brings me out to Croatia and I'm assisting him. And I got this taste.
Imagine he's like, all right, y'all want to see what it looks like if you're fat? All right, go ahead, Anthony. That's all he brought you for.
Yeah, I would have still done it. But that was like, you know, when you give somebody a taste.
Yeah.
And I'm like a real taste. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like you're in another country. People save up their like
Croatia.
Yeah, they save up forever to try and be able to travel somewhere. I'm there on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
And
Right.
opportunity and name at that point for me
Yeah.
personally. And I just get to experience it and do what? A little bit of dancing? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You go on a trip like that, you're there for like 4 days, but you teach what, maybe 2-3 classes, an hour and a half per class. You're really actually working like 4 to 5 hours total.
Yeah, total work. Yeah.
You know what I'm
It's a lot
saying?
more
And the
than it
rest
looks.
is like, what, vacation for a bit, you know, sit on a panel and do a Q&A. Like it was.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about like all the free and easy days that you
yeah,
get? Yeah,
it's just like.
because they also
I'm like,
want you to
this
have a
is
good
work?
experience, which is cool.
Yeah,
They're
you know,
like,
and then
oh.
it's like you're making the same amount of money in literally a weekend that I was making in 2 weeks to a month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Doing what you love. So I think
Mm-hmm.
once you get firsthand experience, because remember those first few years too, like I'm sure for you as well, when you're traveling, teaching, performing, whatever it was you were doing, weren't people still perplexed like, so you get to go to this country and just dance?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and so they pay for your flight
Yeah.
and they pay for your hotel
All of it seemed so weird.
and they pay for your food and you get money.
I was also asking myself that.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was such a
I
weird
was like,
concept.
what's the catch? Every time you go, you're like, what's the catch here?
Exactly.
What's
But
gonna
that,
happen to
that
me?
was just what it was. People
Yeah.
literally desired what you had to give them and they would pay you top dollar for it. And like the second I got that actual taste to know it was real, you know, it was like me joining that sales job. Once I saw somebody else do a sale, I didn't give a fuck what it was. I was on the first team to push makeup. Because I had so much ego that I was like, fuck it, nobody else is gonna do it. I'll do it, and I'll do it better than
Wow.
everybody in this office. So there was a point where I was going business to business selling makeup just to prove a point to my team.
What was your opening line? Tired of looking ugly?
I was like, damn, you're fucking fine. You want to look finer? No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea what it was, but you know, it's just like it was just that kind of like mentality.
Yeah.
And again, for me, that attitude that I had, and then I saw somebody do it.
Yeah.
Then I knew it was attainable.
Right.
And like that changed everything.
I mean, that's probably like 90% of it to me is just seeing how it can be done. And that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, like I think we were privileged to live in that era where it wasn't done before
Super,
us, so we
yeah.
got maybe a bunch of first times.
The ignorance was a major privilege because we just
Helpful.
went head first into everything without
Yeah.
any doubts or like you just did it.
Yeah, I was teaching a workshop at UCLA like this past weekend, right? And there was a
Yeah.
Q&A after, and then one of the questions, you know, I remember these questions all the time being a kid too. And one of the questions like, how do you like find your own style? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no like 100% correct right answer to this. I think everybody has their own answer.
Right.
But I remember having to think about it and being like, you know, the time in which I grew up learning dance and stuff, like we didn't have YouTube, IG, TikTok, anything like that, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing in abundance. There were only like the minuscule moments that you got something by going to like a jam or going to like a club.
Right.
Asking like an OG that you maybe saw in one clip through like Napster or something like that. They give you one tip and that's it. And then you
That's
take
you
that tip
living
for
on
like
that.
3 months.
Yeah, you're living
know
on
what I
that
mean?
tip. Yeah.
But I was like, but there was something about that time for all of us as creators, because if you didn't get influenced by the overabundance of content or you weren't taking a bunch of class, all you were doing was doing the things that you had and then trying to evolve that. And
Yeah.
it would eventually kind of harden something about you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I like to say this still, like during that era, there's way less dancers, but way more artists and creators.
Mm-hmm.
And today, everybody knows how to dance. But like, there's very, very few innovators in the space.
Yeah.
Because everything is a natural kind of like regurgitation of everything that has been
Yeah.
created or like they've put into their body or whatever.
It's,
you know?
It seems like it's so hard to be an innovator because you have such an overload of data. Back in the day, some people innovated things just because they didn't know it already existed. And they
Exactly.
took a road and they just kept going because they didn't know someone else was taking that same road. and then they met in the middle and went, oh, you do that too, and they're both proficient in different like ways. But now it's like you could stop yourself every turn just going, oh, someone's doing that already.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
it's kind
I
of
like,
like,
I was never in dance classes. Like my first for real like kind of foray going into dance classes was when I was already getting invited to dance camps to teach, and I felt like a jerk for being on that lineup. And then like
Why?
we're already there. Like why would I not take this person's class who just took mine? You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like other
yeah.
choreographers
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
lineup.
taking each
I'm
other's
like,
classes,
I'm stuck in Sweden right now, and there's nothing to do because it's snowing outside.
Yeah.
But be at these workshops. Like, why would I not just jump in this person's class, even if I'm gonna look like a fool? But if I'm gonna look like a fool, I might as well do it like across the world and back in my home turf.
That's true.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So like that was me finally going into dance classes because you just did your own thing. You know what I'm saying? You did it long enough until you got good at something, and you bunked up with people who kind of did similar stuff.
Yeah.
Period.
In the future, like skipping over a little bit, when you started coming to JK as not JKNews, but when you started doing skits and stuff,
Yeah.
and then you ended up on the news, did you ever want to like be a host on JKNews? Did you ever think like,
Oh my God,
this
no.
is somewhere I want to be long term?
Never. I was not because it wasn't cool. It was like what's it like? It's like
Because your first skit with them was what, 2000, like
12.
dang, yeah.
Yeah, it was after the 6 tour, and then it was like that following year 2012.
And that's the Yakuza thing? Was that the first skit?
No,
That's
no,
like
that was like the third or fourth or something
Oh,
like that.
okay.
Yeah, I did random stuff with them. I was in a skit. I did a few skits with Lawrence Cal. They always made us super gay in it.
Someone's got to be gay, right? I did a skit with them in 2009 or 10.
Damn,
Like super early or
yeah.
something like that. It was like, or maybe it was 11, but it was I think they took it off because I think it got some flack. It was like
course,
it was a skit about suicide and how you take a pill and it makes you laugh and then die. And then, yeah, it was like me and Steve were in it, I think, and Fang. And then I remember meeting them that day, and I think I might have even met you that day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that era was really, really just fun because I feel like I was already doing things on YouTube. I was putting myself out on YouTube,
Yeah,
but it was all
yeah,
dance
yeah.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
And like when people like stumble upon my choreography or whatever, and they don't hear me talk or don't know anything
Yeah,
about
yeah.
me, like my dance choices are very, I guess, for lack of better terms, or how would you describe my dance choreography? Like just blatantly just looking at my dancing. If you didn't know anything about me, you were just like looking at my style of movement and choices.
I would say very interesting details in the choices.
And the songs are always usually like what, like
My
a little
favorite
deeper,
thing,
a little,
yeah.
little.
My favorite thing about your choreo is that you choose to do something that I think from a dancer's perspective is the least expected thing
Oh,
on
shit.
small moments.
Oh yeah. I
Like
appreciate
rather
that.
like because my fucking idiot brain always wants to do everything big, and then once I saw your guys' stuff, how you put a lot of focus on these like little pictures, I can't think that way, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like that, I think is very contradictory to like my natural personality. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like when people meet me, they would never expect that my personality, the way I speak, is the way that like that creator moves. Cause like, you know, it's like more subtle. It's more like,
Yeah.
you know, ethereal, a little bit more deep and like quiet and reserved, right? I'm not
Yeah,
doing like
yeah,
banger
yeah.
music. Sometimes it's like really just soft spoken stuff.
Right.
So like that's my way to express myself. You know what I mean? In just that way, ways that I don't have regular words to. So when I was in JK Film stuff and I was already on YouTube in different ways, I was even doing Wong Fu stuff from time to time.
Yeah.
I just felt so blessed to have a different outlet publicly, so to speak, to like have fun
Yeah.
in front of the camera than my normal shit. Because my normal shit, like, again, I naturally just choreographed like that or whatever, you know? And then JK Films comes around, and then suddenly we're just doing these skits.
And they're like, hey, we need some gay guys. What are you doing Friday?
It's funny because I give them shit for it, but obviously, of course, they're not writing like hella gay scripts or anything like that because like they're like so anti-gay that they're like homophobes for a little bit at that time. They're such gangsters, right? Which of course It's more so because dancers are so in tune. Like we're constantly like in,
right. We're
you know what I
dealing
mean?
with
Like
that
we're
daily,
just doing
yeah.
stuff all the time. So, and it's especially for dudes in like predominantly guy groups. It's like of course we're gonna just be comfortable. So
Sure.
when me and Lawrence are coming on a set for them, they're probably thinking like, "Dang, these fools are hella gay." When really we're just like super comfortable.
It's
with
like
each
being
other.
in all boys summer camp for like
Yeah.
perpetual years.
Yeah, but like that shit was just so fun. And when news came around and we got to
Yeah.
just sit there and talk, the funny thing is that I feel like when I first came on the news, everyone's just such a fucking comedian.
Was that like 2000? When was that?
2012, 2013?
I remember when I first saw you on JK News, because I used to watch JK News a lot.
Yeah.
Like since they started it, like the debut of it.
Uh-huh.
And then I saw you on there, and I was like, dude, that's fucking tight. I thought you were really good.
Oh, yeah?
So I was like, oh, he's so cool.
You know what's funny? I feel like when I was a guest versus now being a host,
Yeah.
very, very opposite experiences. Like, very opposite. Not just the work that I do, but even just the personality that I am.
Yeah.
Because back then, I was so rarely on
Yeah.
that when I came on, I feel like it was like, I don't know. It's not a matter of like being yourself or not, but like my voice was the most grounded in the room. It wasn't like jokes because I didn't know. I was just coming on. I was just literally
Right.
speaking my mind on a topic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then once you become a regular and stuff like that, you're not always trying to get your point across about
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah. It's not so important to.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You just
Right.
talk about whatever.
Right.
And then like it was like I was regular for like this blip of a second before becoming a host. Just because of the time of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember distinctly, like the first time I came on as a guest, I misunderstood. Like I was so worried that I wouldn't have anything good to say, or like there's some episodes I didn't like. One episode they did, I think one of the first ones ever when I came on here, they were like, all right, so we're going to talk about Game of Thrones in the recent episode. I was like, I'd never seen one episode of Game of Thrones. I spent the
Dude.
whole episode just going, yeah.
And you think about it too, right?
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like a first, I remember like
Yeah, you're
maybe,
like,
third time
it's
as
so
a
mental,
guest.
yeah.
I remember because the first couple times I would be a guest, I remember coming home and just being like, yo, I think I did a good job. I was like talking. You know what I'm saying? Like you just want to contribute. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
this,
yeah.
at the end of the day, this is like a big YouTube channel.
And you don't want to interrupt anybody too, because you don't understand that,
Yeah,
like the
you know?
pockets. You're just kind of like,
And then I do remember it was like my third time or something coming on, and like there would just be a couple articles that are like sometimes you just don't know what to say, or you don't have
Yeah,
something to
yeah,
say, or
yeah,
the flow
yeah.
is just going a certain way,
Right.
And you're like, whoa, 15
and you don't know
minutes
that that's
went by.
okay either.
Yeah, and it's like 15 minutes went by, I didn't say anything. I did a bad job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
feel
Like, I
guilty,
did
yeah.
a bad job. So it's like there was
They will never
totally,
ask me to come back.
There's a totally different dynamic
Yeah,
back
yeah, yeah.
then when you're just like a guest.
And it's
you know?
all in here. Like it really is.
Totally.
Yeah. That's funny.
But then like, being a regular and then like also when you're in the guest seat, which of course we're still there because
Yeah.
of the host, but when you're sitting at that table, it's like the energy of the room goes to you.
Totally.
Everybody sitting on the side is looking.
That's like when you told Jason Cheney, like, hey, sit on that side and it'll feel way different. And
Right?
it's completely different.
It's so different.
Yeah,
It's
it-
like,
it
it
is.
just feels more relaxing and stuff like that. But it is refreshing now.
yeah.
To be on the other side, and sometimes because guests will say, even Jason Cheney said that one time recently when they don't kind of contribute, and they're like, oh, like, I don't know, I didn't, was that okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, dude, it's okay.
I forget that people will still be thinking that. 'Cause
We
it
thought
is-
that.
Yeah.
You know what I
Everybody.
mean?
Yeah. Always.
But it is like especially now, like Gio had mentioned it too, like the flow is so. Especially the Careful Boys era,
Yeah,
and
it's
Attitude
it's very
era.
natural.
We have a pocket now because I think we went through a lot of ups and downs together and like testing certain things and
Hell
us
yeah.
being able to take like trips and just kind of like spend some time developing some sort of chemistry,
Right.
specifically, and even our initiatives to like request like sessions where there are no guests sometimes.
Yeah.
Straight up
yeah.
to just be like, hey, it's
just to
kind
build
of-
the dynamic. Yeah.
it's kind of good to not have like new energy all the time and just
right. Because
focus,
you have to accommodate. Yeah.
yeah, and like now, we've gotten our energy to a certain place with the Attitude Era and the Careful Boys that even Gio comes in. She's like, I don't even want to disrupt. What you
I
guys
know.
going on,
I was
'cause
like, I can't believe Gio's saying that.
that's crazy.
funny,
It's
yeah.
Gio. You know what I'm saying?
Because
Like,
she is technically the dynamic. Like,
Yeah,
that's the.
yeah. But I mean,
framework.
I find a sense of. I would totally say pride because I feel like we put in energy. We, when you put work, you actually try.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
things happen.
Yeah, those
look
are
at-
like 8 to 10 hour
Look at
days.
this shit. We got a fucking podcast trying to go on right now because we're like putting in energy. And,
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing. When you come in as a guest, like you you want to put in your personal energy in hopes that you're doing a good job.
Right.
And I think now just like I can feel it from you too, just the responsibility even as hosts, knowing that we're a formal part of this team and this family.
Yeah,
that, like,
we want to try really hard.
it's not even trying hard for ourselves anymore. We just want the whole thing to work.
And the
do
legacy,
well.
to uphold it. It's been around so freaking long.
And we've just been a part of it in some way, even if for like fractions at a time. Like we've been a part of this journey for over a decade.
Yeah, like you've
know?
shown up. Yeah, like that one. There's that one time you and Steve were arguing about who's been here the longest. So like, just for context, a lot of people don't understand that like making fun of Anthony. The reason it's funny is because he's so cool everywhere freaking else that you should have at least one place where you get to play the other role. Like, you can't be cool everywhere. He doesn't even know what to say to that. Because it's like, that's, to me, that's why it's funny, is because it's ironic. It's like Channing Tatum in 21 Jump Street, where everyone's ripping on him. It's like, and then he's playing that roll up because it's like,
different.
He's so sexy and cool.
He's obviously so sexy and cool, and he's like trying to be nerdy because he's sexy and cool.
You don't find yourself obviously sexy and cool?
Shut the fuck up. We're not even talking about this anymore. There's way better things to talk about on this podcast.
No, but like, I think it's a fun thing to, like, Steve loves to play up on comments. When people go, oh man, they're beefing, like they don't like each other, Steve will always agree with them in comments. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Of course,
but his next comment will be like, yeah, I hate that guy. No, I don't hate that guy. I just hate all dancers.
Steve doesn't come on to social media unless he's fucking talking about like a high from like Wu or Kuji or something like that and trying to fucking rub it in people's faces or to talk shit on me. Like, it's literally his only time he comes out of the social media cave. Like the very first time we were all in Vegas and we were filming that skit, and like without being scripted at all, he walks out and dumps all the Kinja Baked noodles into a trash can. I was like, what is this? Would I have thought that was going to propel this like new brand identity for me on this fucking show? Like, no.
You're his favorite straight man, as he likes to put it.
So dumb.
I know, but that's like something I remember thinking, oh, that's pretty funny. When I came in and I noticed like that you were getting dumped on, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny because it is ironic. And then I remembered I was looking for old videos and I went back several clips and I found like an old video where you were a guest and they were still doing that to you.
Oh, like that's where it started. It was basically the first time. This is the fucking infamous clip, by the way. I think the topic is about it was like about like fans, right? And like everybody's talking about how like, you know, fans run them on the street, like fan etiquette sometimes.
Yeah,
like, can we take a photo and just being awkward or whatever? And then I'm like, fine. It's probably one of those times where I'm like, oh, I think I have a story to contribute to this. And I'm talking about like my situation where like one time right over here on Garvey, like somebody like comes out, blah, blah. And then Bart out of nowhere is like, but you guys didn't even win though, right? And it's like, it was for sure funny, but David's so like, he's just so much.
Yeah,
so his last name
he
is
comes
So.
at a large quantity.
Yeah. So, and he just jumps, he runs up to the camera, he's like, ah, like it was the biggest roast ever, right? And it was a good roast, but he definitely magnified it. And then from there, it just was on every comment.
Yeah.
It was on every new Kinja's YouTube video, every Instagram post, every one of my new posts and stuff like that. And it just like went super far. But it went so far to the point where like fans would come up and just kind of talk junk to me. But, you know, again, I have a thick enough skin where it's like, okay, like I'm logical and practical. Like I know where this came from, so I can't be pissed off about it. But at the same time, it's like when it's everywhere, you're kind of like,
yeah, I know we
what I
talked
mean?
about that before, about how like it's funny in the circle, but when people out of context or outside of it just think like, oh, here's Anthony, he loves like hearing this type of shit, let me just go ahead and tell him fuck Kinjas at the airport.
Yeah, so like people are randomly, you know what I mean? And it's
so out of place.
It is funny, but then when you got like other crewmates, you know what I mean, being like, hey, yo, why'd this person come on here and be like, fuck Kinjas? Like, who's this? And I have to be like, no,
that's
they're
true,
not,
because there are 80 Kinjas. Like, someone's
like,
going to be upset.
They're not actually hating. It's an inside joke from JK, and they're talking shit to me. You know, you just having to explain the context of a joke.
Yeah.
That's when it gets a little bit like, oh.
And it's hard. That's a joke that's hard to explain the context, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's so based on the moment that, like, they're not going to start laughing because you explained it. Like, it's not funny still.
And I'm me, but I'm not fucking every Kinja, right? So if another Kinja's like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
You know what I mean? But it becomes a stupid thing where I'm just constantly explaining why people are saying fuck Kinjas.
That's really tough, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, maybe we should just slow the brakes on this. Otherwise, I'm not going to do this in my fucking late 30s. You know what I mean? Like, can everybody chill out?
Yeah, it's bad when it becomes like a bumper sticker outside of the room. Like that's not the intent of it at all. But
you know how it is. I mean, sometimes it gets heated. And
yeah,
you know
it'll heat up.
Like,
yeah,
it's like it's such a funny thing to just like dunk on that like. You'll try to explain something. You'll try to get into like a topic and seriously say something, but then Steve's like, "Oh, there's a good joke that's gonna come out of this."
It's hard to like. It's too tempting. Yeah.
So there's even moments, you know, in JK where it's like the camera's off. It's like, "Yo, shut the fuck up," you know what I mean? And we'll have like mini little arguments about it because it just goes so far.
Yeah.
But it's not because that moment is so far. It's because of what you know is residually gonna happen.
Right.
Like, in that moment, if somebody says something like dickish. I'm not thinking like, man, that's so fucked up. I'm hearing that dickishness and being like, this is going to come for the next 10 months in comments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's what makes it so much more like, oh, I hope the fans aren't idiots.
Also,
and understand context.
Does it feel like, are you tired of it a little because it's predictable? Are you a little bit like, because once you hear it, you know it's going to go on for like.
I submit myself, I am fucking a servant to this news platform that is Just Kidding News.
Right.
I understand. And nobody, like, I'll throw it out when I can too. Again, I'm not a comedian. I don't have like comedy in my IG like Steve Green comedy. It's not my fucking thing, you know. But like a good joke is a good joke. I will never not laugh at a good joke.
Right.
It only gets a lot to me when it's like you could tell that the energy in the room is like it's easy fallback. So it's like when somebody when there's nothing to say, so you're just looking for something funny, and it's not even contextual, but you're just gonna dunk on it, which is why Steve is so not clever because like when he has nothing to say, he's like, oh, it's just from a dancer. That's his fallback. You can tell anytime he says that he's been drinking too much because I'm out drinking him, and because he doesn't have anything better to say in that moment. You know what I'm saying? And then that's what translates.
But his classics, man. Him, every time he says shoe cobbler.
Yeah, he'll no matter what.
So
no
funny,
matter what,
dude.
Steve's the goat on that shit. Like I will internally. I'm dying every time.
It's hard because
he's
he's such a freaking pro that you can't even like.
The way Steve fucking can throw out shit. I'm dying on the inside so much, and then there's this part of my like maybe my dancer exoskeleton that's like trying to be all tough and stuff still. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if I crack up, that also just means I got owned.
Yeah, it's so hard not to.
But it's like, dude, the guy. This is like his skill. Like he
He's
went to
in
like
his-
improv.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's no way. People in the fans like, yo, Anthony should clap back. I'm like. Put on a hip hop song and let's dance battle. Maybe you know what I mean.
Clap
like
back how?
I'm not in my element. This guy's a pro. You know.
Yeah, it's funny, man.
Yeah, so it's just funny. But Steve, again, on a long form segment, I fucking love Steve. Like, me and Nina sleep at his house. Him and Nikki, like he's been helping me with the crypto journey since like over a year ago. Like we know each other like in ways that like we've never gotten a chance to share on this show. You know
I think that's why
saying?
he loves playing it up because it's so not actually true outside of the you know like he doesn't.
I know that if I hit him up for anything, he'll help me out. Or if he hits me up and needs anything, like I'm there for him.
He's such a good dude.
That's what makes it funny. Just because it's all our fault. We give the fans what we give the fans. If we don't give them the other side, they're only going to react to that. The fans aren't dumb or anything. They just get what they get.
And it's cool that the hardcore fans like understand that it's just a bit. But like when you see comments that of people are like, "Yo, Anthony's really getting bothered," and then Steve's there to reinforce it. Yeah, that guy can't take a joke. But like he just loves playing it up because it's so far from the actual truth. Yeah.
No, the funny thing is that it's not far from the truth. The funny thing is I am sitting there getting roasted by an actual comedian and I don't have much to clap back on. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh man, this guy's really talented at this.
Yeah, he is.
It's
really
like, when
good.
are we going to be in my forum? When are we going to be on my court,
God.
Steve?
People have been asking for that for so long. They're always like, yo, make Anthony like teach a dance to the guys.
But even then, it's not like you're going to watch these guys dance and be like, ha, you suck.
I know,
you
yeah.
What I mean? That's not the...
they're gonna get credit for it.
Yeah,
that's
but,
true.
Which would be hilarious, by the way. You know, getting these motherfuckers up. They can't. They got like 2 left feet. You know what I'm saying? Like Bart being so buff, like his muscles will move better than his like rhythm. Like it would just be so funny to get them to dance. But that's not the point. The point is people come and they want to see our fucking personalities flare on this show, and that's just interesting that's one of the manifestations that I would have never known because as a guest, right? It was very, very few and far in between, and because I was here so like not frequently, like there was a lot of respect You know, I'm not saying it's disrespect now, but there was a lot of just like, you know,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
dunk on a guest hella
No,
hard. You want
yeah.
to up them. You want to make them feel good.
Right, that's why
you
they're
know what
here,
I mean?
yeah.
And then now you become a regular, and you're like, yeah, this is my family, and then everybody's dunking on you. And you're like, this is fucking funny, dude.
I mean, that's how it is. Like Nick said about his ears. He's like, they're gonna dunk on you no matter what.
Yeah.
You know.
But I honestly I love this group
Yeah,
so
me
much.
too.
It really is
Yeah.
so dope.
I love the whole thing. Like, I hated it at first. Like, not when I came on as a host, but the first time I came on as a guest, and I remember I thought it was so fun. And then
You talking like 2009?
yeah,
or 2000,
like,
early 2000s. Like
I think 2014.
yeah, because
might have
news
been.
wasn't around till like 12 or 13.
Yeah, 2014, 2015, I came on as a guest, and I was like, that was fun. And then I remember my cousin was like, hey, don't read the comments. And I was like, why? He's like, yo, their audience is mad toxic. And I was like, how is an audience toxic? They were watching the show. And then I looked at the comments. I was like, every person just was making fun of me. Like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy sucks. Like, I didn't even say anything for most episodes. They'd be like, what a loser. This guy looks like an idiot. Like, everything was like so negative. And I was like, what is the point of that? Why would that be a thing? And then over time, like, and then Joe had like was explaining it to me later. He was like, yeah, we went way too long not checking the channel on that, like not cleaning house. Because I remembered when I mentioned that now, like, oh, the audience is so much better now. And Joe was like, yeah, that's not a coincidence. It's like we had to like, it festered for so long, this like weird negative vibe with the audience, and they operated on that. And now like those people are all gone. And now the people who weren't talking back then because they didn't want to chime in on that shit are now the people speaking.
Totally. I mean,
It's dope.
you know, like just a little bit ago, we were talking about like firsts, right? Like even in our industry, like the dance community and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Being like, oh, we didn't even know that like people were watching these YouTube videos that we were
Yeah,
sharing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Same thing. I think we were like, even JKNews was submitting itself to an era that people were like the keyboard warrior.
Yeah, right.
This is the generation that developed. The first keyboard warriors
That's
ever.
true,
The
yeah,
first
yeah.
people that ever like, you know, behind the comfort of their username and a
Yeah.
different IP address location, you
Right.
could say anything in your freedom of speech and never be checked.
Inconsequential, yeah.
Inconsequential. Even if somebody didn't like your thing, it would do nothing to your physical nature.
Yeah.
So people had this like, just this armor on. They could say anything, you know
Right,
what I mean?
right,
And so
right.
if you did participate in like some sort of online forum, like a JK News comment section, and
Yeah.
say whatever the fuck you wanted to and not get checked, like like Joe said, like, you know, just leaving it and not really checking that entire
Right.
community, of course you're gonna have the most toxic
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? JK News comments was like fucking League of Legends toxic level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it
Like,
was a
people were
COD
just-
lobby.
People were just going off because they could, and
Yeah.
because it was the nature of the conversation sometimes.
Right,
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if
yeah.
you were in the room when I think I told the guys this, but I got really like affected. I asked this one dude who I thought was really cool. I was like, oh, he's a creator on like TikTok and stuff, and I was like, oh, this guy's really cool. Like I fuck with his stuff. And then I asked him like, yo, would you ever want to like come on to JK? And then he was like, yeah, man, like I've been a fan of JK forever. Like that JK is like the GOAT, blah, blah, all good things to say. And then I followed up with him like a few weeks later, and I was like, hey, you still down to come on? And his tone was like completely different. And he was like, yeah, nah, I'm not even, I can't even be on that shit. Like it's not what it used to be. But like I think he like either someone got to him and like said something, or he looked it up and just didn't like what he was seeing. And then so rather than be like, oh, well, fuck you, then I was like, yo, can we talk? And like, can you just tell me a little bit about why you don't like the channel? And then, because I really wanted to know, like,
Yeah.
what's behind. Like,
When
'cause
was this? You were
this
already
was,
hosting?
yeah, I was already hosting, but this seemed like a good chance to actually get a good
Yeah.
look on like what's wrong with it from his perspective. And then he broke it down like for me and was just like, yeah, one of the things was like he said that JK does not defend when people are talking shit about the guest, which is true. And like when we have a guest on and nobody knows them, people automatically tend to be like, well, who the fuck is this? This person sucks, because they haven't won them over.
Yeah.
Especially if you lead with like an article and not an OTR on a person's appearance.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, like out of nowhere. There's no intro about
Which
like,
we got to do better on that, by the
yeah,
way. We gotta...
which yeah, but that was one thing, and I was like, oh, that's a good point. Another thing, he was like, oh, the opinions aren't different like they used to be.
Oh, like hive-minded, everybody's on the same page with stuff.
Yeah, which is like some shit you kind of are on the same page, but maybe we don't express enough that we are, even though or that we aren't. I don't know, but that was one thing that he didn't like, and then he was like, oh, like. Also, there's like some shit that's like borderline like racial or whatever. That I was like, that might have been way before my time. I haven't experienced anything like that since being here. And yeah, and he just completely declined to like fuck with it, and it just was like, nah. But then
I get it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not wrong.
No, yeah.
know?
I was like, thank you. I'm like, I'm glad you were able to speak your opinion, and I wanted to like kind of take that and see if like what we could use from that. One of the main things really was the lack of presence in comments too. Was just like people are allowed to say whatever they want too much. Not like we should just like, no, you guys can't say that, but like we should still weigh in beyond the video. Like
Yeah.
if people are saying something bad about, you know, a guest or something, like the fact that they might go look at the video themselves and go, wow, everyone's just dunking on me, and JK's not here to be like, no, actually they're cool.
Yeah, that is a tough thing. I mean, one, we should definitely always throw out new guest OTRs before regular articles.
That's
One,
it's not gonna happen.
if we could just fucking get in order with our production schedule, so that it makes sense, because it's a story for people, you know. what I mean?
Yeah,
For longtime followers and stuff that like are diligent with like the new uploads. There is a little bit of chronological order that helps with that, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember when Jesus was on.
Oh yeah, that was a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the first comments were like, I don't like this guy.
Yeah, people just couldn't like they couldn't. Take
And then
it.
by the time the third video comes out, it's like,
Yeah.
I love this guy.
Yeah, and then
You
people
know what I
came
mean?
around and they were
it's
like, he's cool. Yeah.
It's complicated. Again, everybody in general, like, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe the world in general would be a better place with a little bit less judging. You know what I mean? Everybody's very quick to judge because you never know. And we don't know either, too. Sometimes having a guest doesn't guarantee that, like, everything is going to click. You know, we're sitting in the room and organically and authentically finding a flow with another human being. You know?
Right.
One who is like in themselves, just like we explained when we were guests, like there's already a camaraderie here. There's already like a chemistry and a flow with like 5 or 6 other people that know each other. And I'm a new guy in the room sitting in the hot seats.
That's hard. Yeah.
You know, it's a very difficult thing. So any guest who survives the session with us is a feat. And people need to know that, you know.
That's what I like. I really like the fact that you're just jumping into a grab bag of things where like you don't know who you're gonna get, but you can appreciate the differences, and that's what I like. Some people in the comments really do warm up to that, and they're like, I just like that I never know what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And it's not always gonna be the same, which is amazing.
That's just the reality of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gotta say, just because we have this forum, Mr. Ryanimay, what you have been doing with these social media, and more than I think social media is actually too. It doesn't encapsulate the full thing. I think with the community, I think the JK community truly exists today.
It's a good community.
Yeah, because of like what you're also doing with the social media. You know, I remember when it was like, it was before you were starting to jump on social media, where I was looking at Joe and Bart and I was like, why aren't we posting anything on our social media? It's like we don't, like, we have all this content we're creating on the daily, and the last JKNews Instagram video you have is from like the old era of stuff. Things haven't been posted for months, and I'm like, we need to, like, we're losing followers. We're like, we're literally just at this point where things are going downwards, and we need to have new stuff. And then again, back to my thing about being like the biggest fan of your IG stories and stuff. I was like, I told him, I was like, dude, Ryan is like the most genius guy I know in terms of a way to get certain
of IG
things.
stories.
Dude, there's something to it. If you fucking know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You know, you just like have some sort of X factor with it. Indescribable, right?
That's funny, man. Thank you.
And then, you know, the second you start actually doing our social media and stuff, what happens? The community starts growing. There's familiarity. You're like bridging gaps in conversation. There's an entry point for people to communicate with us, where somebody on our side with the account name is responding in kind. You know what I mean? there's moments where you're willing to, in the IG stories, like in between breaks, just say thank you to new supporters or clarifying certain things, or you're reposting different guest stuff that's not content from our channel, but maybe it's like a comedy show that they're going to be performing.
Oh,
and you're
yeah,
like, go
yeah,
watch
yeah.
this. And that's like nurturing the community and the relationship with all the guests and stuff. And now you're seeing that, like, as expansive as that goes from IG over to TikTok, you know, we have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok now, and things are going viral. Our YouTube shorts being uploaded and like bringing the subscribership back up to a different level, giving us new breath and life to a space where it makes sense to like run Patreon a different way, because you're actively in the Discord communicating with our patrons. Like, I think that the community building is truly a revolutionary and big change for this JK News structure, because straight up, I remember when we were going out to Vegas, you know what I mean? And it was like when you formally got down, we were in Bart's gym at his old house, his old forever home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we got to make
Forever Home 3.
I remember asking, I was like, you know, can we get Ryan to be a regular, because he's just
Yeah, our first like meeting all together.
yeah, you know, it's just fucking good at what he does, and the energy is cool. But now seeing like where it's being able to go, like at that time where it was and where the energy was, I remember, because you know, we had just signed up to be like not full time, but like regulars on it.
Yeah,
and I had just signed up
dedicated
to be a host,
to it. Yeah,
you know what I mean. And this is obviously after, you know, like Tiff left and stuff like that, and there was like a host hole that wasn't being filled. And Steve just stepped in because he was capable, but it's not like he wanted to host everything.
Right.
And they're having this conversation right here in this office at this table about like not having like a host situation. I was like, hey, I don't mean to be too forward, but I think I could do this if you need another host. And they're so open, Bart and Joe, they're so adaptive and open.
Oh,
and
that's
very
how that
smart.
happened?
That's really how it happened. And I was like, I think I could do a pretty good job. They're like, you sure? And I was like, yeah, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've done similar things. And then my first hosting ever, Dante Bosco is the guest.
That's funny that they keep doing that. It happened to me too.
Yeah, so like Dante's a guest, and we're
Just straight into hard mode.
Yeah, we're
someone
straight-
you respect.
We're right into it, and then fucking, I look at the video in the comments, the very first video of my debut hosting. And it wasn't like Anthony's debut hosting it by any means.
Oh, they just like cold was like,
Yeah,
hey,
but I
here
was
it
just
is.
curious about
Yeah.
it, and like this was also in line with like the time that, you know, and I'm not going to dive too much into it because again, I'm just going from my third party perspective, but you know, our old host Tiff also, like, you know, just left, so a lot of the fans were kind of like split in between the middle. There's a
Right.
lot of like drama that was like I wasn't very understanding or privy to, because
Yeah,
again,
because that
I
had
was-
nothing to do with us.
I
yeah.
just become a regular, you know?
Right.
And I remember thinking like people were just so upset in the comments, and like that was my first
Oh.
host job.
God damn, that's a rough entry point.
Yeah, so like it just felt like everything was like this, and I remember telling Bart.
Yeah, because you can't really win.
you know,
off
and,
that,
and
yeah.
you know, all love to guys like Bart and Joe, but like, you know, Bart, he's obviously still building his giant empire with like barbell and everything that's going
Yeah.
on. Joe he was deep in the trenches with everything he's doing, getting
Yeah.
Jumbi Waikiki up and all this stuff. Like they're doing really huge and amazing, phenomenal things that JK News was kind of like. We were in a deep pocket of some sort of lull. We were rebuilding our team from the inside out.
yeah.
And obviously a lot of fans were upset and leaving.
Right.
And, you know, I just become a host of this like dying animal.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a point
You
where
were
I was-
almost like a human shield in a way.
a little bit. But I do remember this is the crazy thing. I looked at Bart and I remember just being like, yo, I don't want to be a part of like a dying thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to submit myself to that. You know,
Right.
it's like I'd rather be a part of like I don't care if it's low and down at the bottom. I just care that it's trying and growing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like seeing where it's gone, and again, a lot of like credit to you and like what you've been able to do with the community building, the social media, and just reviving certain things. You know what I mean? In a certain way, just realistically, also just playing by the regular rules of today's social media.
Yeah.
But like now, like it's a growing thing, and it's fucking
It is, yeah.
beautiful.
It's amazing,
The
yeah.
community and the fans are like amazing. The Discord is fucking fun. You know, people are just
Yeah.
like the regulars that come in and they're supporting and like they're submitting articles and like it's just so fucking cool now. You know, because the Patreon is growing, the subscribership is growing, the followers on TikTok and Instagram are growing, the views are growing. Like all of it is just working, and it's just way cooler.
I think it's harder too to grow something that's been around so long in a certain degree, like in a way that it's always been.
Yeah.
And then now it's not that anymore. It's like, yeah, people are justified for going, I don't like this now. You know, it's like, okay, cool, because you're so used to this thing. But for the people that like are willing to accept it and they find out it's actually pretty freaking cool, it's like, I love that idea that like, hey, if you stayed around long enough and you kind of caught the drift of it and you enjoyed yourself, that's great. I think that dude who like kind of explained why he didn't like the channel really helped me a lot, because rather than like feeling like, oh, we need to silence all these people talking shit, it wasn't that. It was, we need to back the people up that are saying good things about us. And doing that makes them feel like they should fight harder for you.
Yeah,
because it's like,
100.
hey, like, thank you for saying that you love JK. Thank you for saying that you've watched it for a decade. Thanks for saying that you've been here since Uncle Chin. Like, it's like the people that say that shit, they're really taking a moment out of their lives to be like, I want you to hear this. And when I looked back at the old messages that I like, that were never answered on the DMs,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, there are some freaking really valuable things. And I went through it and was just like, thank you. Sorry, we didn't respond in 6 years. Like all these people that were saying all these things that nobody gave a fuck. Like nobody saw it.
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
God damn, man.
Once you connect with the fans and the community, you know what I mean? Like, that's when it's like the super fans are really the ones that actually support and drive the foundation
it
for
really
stuff.
is.
It's not just about like, you know, when you got like nearly 2 million subscribers, like we don't know 1.8 million of them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like the 10,000 that are like consistently in like every new thing. If you drop a shirt, they buy it. If you drop a Patreon, they subscribe.
Exactly.
If you
Yeah.
drop a video, they comment. Like that's what actually keeps the whole thing going.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So just nurturing that element, like, I don't know. It just there's definitely a magic. There's something about the Attitude Era. There's something about the Careful Boys and everything that's happening right now that like I feel like it's brand new, it's growing, and it's like fucking fun to be a part of. Yeah.
It is, and the audience is so good. Like when you go to other podcasts or other anything, like there's very few people that are as like, these people have been in here like 10 years deep. Like they're down. Like they are down. They're not gonna change their mind about you overnight and be like, oh, you're not cool anymore.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
people like
they're
grow up
they're
with
past
this
that.
channel.
Yeah, they're way beyond that. It's like that's way more value. Like you can't build an audience like that.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like back to my fucking UCLA workshop I was just teaching at.
Yeah.
So funny. We had this Q&A afterwards. Everybody's like lining up to take photos and stuff like that, and people were just saying things that they just wanted to share with me. Like, yo, dude, like I've been watching you since I was 6.
Dude.
I'm like, excuse me?
Wow.
I'm like, wait.
Thanks for
how's
aging
that possible?
me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, how old are you now? 20. I'm like, oh, whoa. Like that's a thing. That makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense at your
it does
age.
make sense.
And it's like, that's what something even like JK is. Just the idea of even being one of like the first channels to do something like this. And again, it's easy for us to talk about maybe because we weren't the guys who created. So like being able to also
Right.
witness it gives us perspective, you know, but like to see it being one of the first and original kind of like YouTube channels, especially for Asians as well, to have this kind of like forum and platform for people to speak and still be alive is, I think, that in and of itself is an anomaly. You know what I mean?
Insane.
And
It
that
shouldn't be
brings
here.
value in a different way, because now people, like you said, are able to be like, I grew up watching you. You're the one. You're the group that gave me, you know what I mean? My from my childhood, you guys taught me all this X, Y, Z. You know, and it's like that's wild,
right?
That people can learn from that.
I love hearing people say that their humor is shaped by JK in a way that they don't take everything so seriously.
Dude, and it's not even just like people who like, you know, are like Asian people that are introverts,
right? It's not limited to
and
just
blah blah blah, right? It's like Philip Chabi was on our Kinja's podcast recently, Pack, and he was very wholeheartedly expressing how much he fucking loves JK, because he's like, in today's hypersensitive world, it's not just refreshing, it's like needed that a group of people can unfiltered just speak, because it's not like we're fucking scripting jokes and going off of something that's like so innovative.
Right.
In all honesty, it's a lot of the internalized societal regular feelings or thoughts that people have. We're just not afraid to speak about it. You know what I mean? So even when like, you know, homeboy is talking about like, oh, you know, it's things are like racial and blah blah blah, like I bet you know, I beg to ask people in society in general to like look at that. Our most viral clips on JK oftentimes have to deal with race. Right. It's not because we're racial. We're talking about everything. We're talking about conspiracies to like space to like,
it's all across the board.
We're talking about everything. We're not just talking about race, but society is holding on to like those bites the most, or
Exactly.
are most interested, or have most comments because it's like polarized.
And it's something they feel like they can weigh in on.
Exactly. So
right.
it's like that's maybe some of the things that most people tend to think are the extremities. They think the extreme expressions are the things that characterize what that brand or that group of core values is.
Right.
But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think we, JK is truly like kind of a group of regular people, so to speak. I know we're irregular, but a group of kind of like normal humans existing in life on planet Earth that are just speaking what normal people might also be thinking or thinking about, you know? And I think that's the power. It's not the magic like we're, you know, presenting brand new news before anybody else hears about it, or like we're giving some sort of perspective
Definitely
that
not doing
nobody
that.
else thought about.
Yeah.
No, we're just speaking like regular people. We're just choosing to speak about it versus like not, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Rather than just stay silent on it. The cool thing is I'm glad that they trust us with doing this. Like Bart and Joe.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was
Yeah.
like, the people. I'm like, I don't think they should trust us. No. Yeah, Bart and Joe. Like I said, there's them being adaptive, recognizing like, you know, how to encourage and enable people's strengths and momentum. Like I think there's got to be a reason why this thing is still alive after like over a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It comes from still like, you know, people that get it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dope.
Damn, we're at 2 hours already.
Nice. I like it.
Oh yeah, let's wrap this up. Let's wrap this up.
But yeah, I'm in total, I'm glad that we both ended up here, man. Like it's really cool.
I am too. I think it was just the other month I was telling Mike, I was like, I'm fucking glad Ryan's on here because as long as I've known Ryan, this is like now the closest we get to become.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is like, we've lived like this for years and years and years. But like for JK, for this to be one of the benefits of it is like a win to me. I'm like, dude, I finally get to like connect with you at a level that I've only seen in passing.
Yeah.
Or I was too shy to go, hey, you want to play video games?
Dude, it's
it's
all,
cool.
all cheesiness at the forefront. You know what I mean? Like just you the older you get, the less of opportunity you have to like make friends or like to really connect with people, and you get very like protective of your space.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like JK gives us a forum to even bring on guests. The fact that there's just a space to bring on a new personality or a new like networked person builds relationships in like a, I don't know, in an adult play date way. And then on the other side of it, it's like we as a collective get to just develop our friendships and deepen our bonds and stuff like that. And as much time as we spent with the camera button on where we're talking about stuff, that's like the same amount of time as when the camera's off and we're talking about random shit.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like doubled that down, and like that's how much we're almost fast forwarding our relationship building because of the amount of time we're putting into it. But I don't know, it's just fucking cool. I'm glad that we're like doing things like this podcast and just like finding new ways to not just express ourselves and like have a different kind of purpose in life, but like again back to the just connecting with our community is the most, I think, enriching thing. Like really just like, you know, everybody wants to belong somewhere and have some sort of connection is all, you know. And I feel like this is what I also personally get selfishly from JK. We just get to connect with people,
especially I feel like at this time in the world where like so many things are going wrong for everybody. I really like the fact that I can sit in a room and we can openly talk about how badly we're fucking up at things. Like it makes me feel better.
Yeah, it does make me feel better. I would probably be depressed if I was just thinking all these things.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
But we literally get to bring in the worst topics here, and somehow, except for the ones that we're going to get canceled for, somehow we're cracking up about everything.
And I think that's what people also need. Like in the audience too, they have their own stories about how things are going so badly, but JK is there, and we can all relish in it together and just, you know, be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, if we're all gonna go down with
hilariously
the shit,
miserable,
like, let's just crack up while we're going down.
Yeah,
you know
might as well.
That's what this whole show is.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us on the first episode of JK Overtime, where we go way over without getting paid.
That's just the tagline. Oh, please subscribe.
Please subscribe.